If you are thinking of a bank that takes care of customers' needs by providing quality services with flexibility, reliability, and innovation, think Trust Bank Limited. With Trust Bank Limited mobile banking, you enjoy services such as balance inquiry, mini statement, funds transfer between accounts, exchange rates, mobile airtime top-up, stop ATM card, checkbook request, and PIN change. Our real-time gross settlement allows the customer to instruct the bank to transfer funds from their account to another account at another bank. Our expertise and experience in international banking is both legendary and the envy of the market. Retail banking, one bank, different amazing packages. Whether you are interested in savings account, current account, time or fixed deposit account, lending or overdraft, our team of dedicated staff is always ready and willing to help you out with your transactions as you wish. Corporate banking. Trust Bank Limited offer the most convenient services for deposit accounts, credit facilities, trade finance, bond and guarantee, and foreign currency account. With e-banking, you can make electronic bill payments and online banking and enjoy 24-hour access to your cash with our ATM. With the largest network of branches and agents, we give you the convenience to receive funds as you please. Trust Bank Limited, proudly Gambian.
fay lempo warugal la si képp koo xam ne doomi réew mi nga ak ñu fi dëkk bu fekkee ne ci at mi sa koom-koom weesu na $2,400 dalasi mbete weer bu nekk di nga am lu tollu si $2,000 dalasi lempo si la nguur gi di sukkandeku ngir liggéey yokkute réew mi GRA mooy banxaas bu nguuri Gambia sas ngir mu fayeku lépp luy lempo ci biir réew mi ba tax na GRA di yëgal faykati lempo yi ne warugal la pour ñu fay lu ñu naan withholding tax on contract payment maanaam bépp contract bu waay joxe te si biir réew mi lañu toog kon xaalis si contract bi ngeen nangotoo war nga cee wàññi ci xayma téeméer bu nekk fukka bu fekkee ne contracto bi dëkkut ci biir réew mi bu boobaa di nga war a wàññi téeméer bu nekk fukka ak juróom lii mooy lempo bu ñu naan withholding tax on contract payment lii mooy lempo bi nga xam ne yow mi joxe contract warugal la nga wëlbatiku dem fay ko ci maakaani GRA tax office bu la gën a jege mbete ci banque yi GRA jagleel pour fay lempo war ngaa jéebal lempo bi si diiri fukki fan ak juróom gannaaw bi nga wàññee ci xaalis si contract bi amul benn contracto bu ñu teggil fay lempo bi xanaa mu fekk ne nguuri Gambia ñoo ko jéegale boole si projet yi nga xam ne mbootaay ndimbali ñoo koy dépense GRA di fayeku lempo ngir yokk.
For the first time in the history of the Gambia, Gambia Printing Publishing Corporation proudly introduces the Biliomatic exercise book printing machine. The machine has the capacity to print more than 20,000 books per hour. Yes, 20,000 books per hour. It also prints magazines, newspapers, calendars, flyers, normal books, and all kinds of printed documents, plus items at affordable prices. With the Biliomatic printing machine, GPPC can now render high quality and non-size restricted printing service supply across the sub-region. Rush now and partner with GPPC for all your public and private printing service needs. Print with us today and you'd be offered highly professional, reliable and efficient service delivery by our team of experts. The Gambia Printing and Publishing Corporation is here to meet all demands and is reliable at all times. For more info, contact us on 437-4493 or 437-4402. GPPC is Gambian and it's yours.
In communication, connectivity is everything. We ensure that the links never sleep. Quantities and qualities, all in our data service, providing efficient, reliable voice and data service. We believe if you're not up to speed, then you're going backwards. Communications have to flow as fast as the speed of light. Whatever business you're in, having someone who understands your needs is critical. That is why we just don't offer you technology, we offer you solutions. Enjoy Gamcel's internet broadband anytime, anywhere. Your national operator, Gamcel, Yaibara.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of our show. We come here every Thursday to talk to you about current affairs, things that are happening in the country. And of course, with me today is Esa Njai. Esa is our co-host on the show. Esa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I think it's been a while.
It's been a while, right? I am here all the way in in New York, the capital city of America, in my Dusano voice. But yes, we have not had a show since I left. I'm on vacation, but I have to still work vacation. But I'm glad to be back. And I saw you on the brunch, and you were all. I'm like, that's Esa. How have you been?
Yeah, it's been a few Thursdays without the program.
Yes.
And I've been using that to do some other stuff. But then I think also it's been unusual Thursdays. I'm always excited, when it's Thursday, especially when we have guests that have a lot to say and everybody is
especially politicians.
Exactly.
Actually, I see a lot of people and they say, Esale, Dr. Cicele, my party. These are the questions I get. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but I'm glad to be back. And I'm sure the conversation that we'll have today will also be very interesting because these are about current issues in the country.
Yeah, welcome back. And today, of course, we are also going to be joined by lawyer Sadio Barrow. Sadio is my personal lawyer in the United States. He's been very helpful. I've said this several times, very helpful to myself and my family, during our immigration status. And he's been just amazing. And he's always ready to share his opinion when it comes to Gambian issues. Sadio, welcome back to Kerr Fatou.
Thank you for having me. And then it's a pleasure to be back on this platform.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk about, we'll be joined later by Mohamed Takani. He's also in New York. So today I'm hosting people from America, Esa. You're the only one in Gambia. So, but we will be talking about a lot of issues. We will be talking about the current affairs, the recent trial, the Bob Keita trial, the outcome of that trial. Sadio will help us to analyze what happened. We will also be talking about the AKI outbreak in the Gambia. Since the outbreak, we have not had a show with you. I saw your output out there, but I think it will be important to talk about that since it's still ongoing. We will also be talking about the recent press release by the oil marketers about the fuel shortage that is going to happen on Monday. Well, they're not going to be selling fuel. And of course, we have seen that Mohamed Dabo was arrested recently because of remarks he made against the president and the first lady, and also the group Women Lives Matters, who wanted to hold a press conference, were invited for questioning. So all of these we'll be talking about. First, let's start with the Bob Keita case. Esa, when the case was ongoing, we limited ourselves because it was an ongoing case and we didn't want to talk about it in depth, because normally when cases are ongoing, you just want to limit yourself. But now that the case is over, Sajo will give us an insight as to his overview about the entire case. And of course, first, let's start with you. I mean, on the eve of the verdict, the final hearing, there were a lot of news out there that the results came out, that the blood didn't match, Bob's blood samples didn't match that of baby Mohammed, and it was already out even before the court sittings. When you get to hear about that news, what was your first reaction?
Thank you very much. I think the Bob Keita rape trial has been one of, if not the most followed rape trials in the history of the Gambia, at least that I know of. And of course, everybody was keenly following, especially how the dynamics were changing towards the end. And then, of course, when I also had the news, I saw it on some media outlets, especially What's on Gambia, reporting that the case, the blood samples indicate that Bob is not the father because the samples did not match with that of baby Mohammed. But then when the court delivered the judgment, or they said that, the blood samples did not match, for me, it was not only about Bob, but also they said that even the boyfriend, his blood samples did not also match with that of baby Mohammed. And so the first question that I ask myself is, then who is the father of this boy? Because he has a father, okay? And that must be clear that, everybody, has a right to know who actually is the father, because these are the two people that are involved. The lady accused, or the girl accused Bob Keita of having an affair with her, that in fact, he's the only one that, she slept with. The boyfriend had no affairs with her. So meaning insinuating that, Bob, of course, was the father of the child. But when the blood samples came out, the DNA results said otherwise. And for me, a lot of people pay attention to Bob, Senabu, and of course, baby Mohammed. But I think there is something that people also need to look into. Now that the results are out and we are being told that Bob is not the father, but also the boyfriend is not the father, it seems nobody is concerned who then is the father. And then the other thing is that this girl was a minor when she was raped. She was raped. That was why, she was pregnant. So she had her rights being violated. She was raped as a minor because there is no consent for minors. She was raped as a minor. But it seems like a lot of people tend to ignore that part as well. Okay, the results are out. It says that Bob is not the father, the boyfriend is not the father, and that's it. But who is also concerned about the pain that the girl, has undergone, and also, what she's going through? But then, at some point, people tend to blame the girl too, and of course, that's excusable as well. Why? Because at the end of the day, what she told the court that Bob is the father, Bob is the one that she had affairs with or slept with, turned out not to be true, as in the rape aspect of, the paternity aspect of it. Whether the rape was done or not, that's something else. But according to the, testimony, that she gave, is that Bob is the one that she slept with. So if the DNA turned out to be that, okay, Bob is not the father, then it's a lie that she did not, had affairs with Bob. At least Bob is not the father of the child. So that came out. But a lot of people tend to ignore also that this girl has her right being violated. She was raped by someone that we might not know. And, something has to be done about that. She has to get justice at the end of the day. but also the child who died also has to get justice. I'm not sure how true this is, but we are, seeing on confirmed reports that the state also want to. I think they want to also withdraw this case or whatever against the current one that is going on against Sina Mumbai. I don't know how true this is, but they want to drop it and then forget about everything. But if that is happening, if that is true, if that is anything to go by, then we will tend to question our justice system, our criminal justice system. I think Sayo can help us with that. But then also the other important thing is that when this whole trial was going on, a lot of people were talking about, speedy trial, fair trial. We want speedy trial and fair trial for Bob. We want justice. Like they always say, justice delayed is justice denied. But if really what people are fighting for or calling for is, something genuine, I think it should not stop with Bob. There should be a whole, so I call it a revolution or whatever, advocacy, I might put it that way. The people will be calling for speedy and fair trial, that we need reforms of our criminal justice system, because Bob is not the only one who has been languishing in jail for 2 years. There are people who have been in jail for 10 years or 5 years or 7 years, and nobody talks about them. So then people will tend to question, is the fight for Bob really genuine? Because is it that because Bob is affluent, everybody knows him, he is connected and all that, and that's why people have to stand for him. But how about the less affluent people in society, the voiceless, those that are in prison, accused and they don't even know their faith for years? So for me, instead of being, an end, it should be the beginning of a journey, of a struggle, of a fight, a call, and advocacy to, ensure that there is speedy and fair trial for people that are accused. We can't be keeping people in jail for like 7 years, 8 years, 10 years when they don't know their faith. So for me, the advocacy will continue. If really the fight that people have done for Bob, if it is something genuine, I think they should go now, because people then be questioning now, okay, why Bob? Why is he so special? Why people out, ensuring that he had, because I know for certain, and all of us know that it was because of the public pressure as well that we were able to have a speedy trial for Bob. If the public pressure was not there, probably he will still be there. So that same public pressure should be there to call for reforms, to call for speedy and fair trial for all accused persons, because they are all innocent until proven guilty. But we have been having this year, people have been in jail for 10 years and without knowing their faith. So people really should be concerned about not looking at Bob's case in isolation, but looking at this broadly, how this will impact our criminal justice system when it comes to ensuring speedy and fair trial.
That's right. That is very, very important, Sadio. We will look at our judicial system. I said this here one time, and I was with some Gambian lawyers, and no one really commented about it, because you know how powerful judges are. So people tend to really be careful when it comes to talking about the judicial system. But I think what SI is saying is very, very important. What is happening in that system is important. But first, Sadio, I want us to look at this case in particular. What was your observation? What really stood out for you throughout this process?
Thank you, Fatou. From the report, I think thanks to Kemising Sane, he was the one who was bringing most of this trial and then the news to the public. But following this trial at the High Court, I think what stood out to me was it exposed our judicial system. And then oftentimes, not that I want to say that I'm too old, but at least I would, I believe that I remember most about the Second Republic during the Gambia days. And then we do not have a lot of faith in the judiciary. And then there's this, ostensible, understanding among Gambians that, hey, the judiciary is corrupt because Gambia wanted that way. It's a Gambia hired mercenary, Gambia hired gun. And then I have a family believed growing up in the Gambia that most of our lawyers, in Gambia, almost every lawyers, if they are of Gambian origin or even, non-Gambians, they are very competent, and then they are highly, professional, and then they actually represent the best of their clients. But my belief is it is the executive that is somehow changing them. And then the judiciary, once Jambe is out, that would change.
Yeah.
And come 2017, somehow I have this feeling that, the judiciary is independent. And then especially when the Chief Justice started Gambianization of the Gambian bench, I really appreciate that. And then I was very much excited. And then I thought that, the early important constitutional decision coming out of the Supreme Court reaffirm my belief in the judiciary, the independence of the judges. But it also exposes our weakness as Gambian, speaking legally, and then I have learned that Jambe, in as much as has a part to play, in our judicial system, the bar as an association, meaning the lawyers in the Gambia, judges including everything, it also exposes our weaknesses, some of our incompetencies, and then some of the lackadaisical nature of some of the lawyers, in terms of handling their cases. So I don't think the blame entirely rests on the judiciary, especially when it's spoke about speedy trial. It doesn't mean, in as much as the court may frustrate some of the efforts in speedy trial, lawyers contribute to that, both prosecution and then defense lawyers. And then I'm not talking about Bob case specifically, but other cases where they are represented counsel. So I think to a greater extent, the Bob Keita trial is a blessing in disguise for Gambians. It exposed Gambians to what the current system is. It exposed our understanding of how mile 2 is, how someone could, be detained, pre-trial detention for a very long time without speedy trial, and then that contribute to all parties in this matter, and then at least for an opportunity for National Assembly to at least learn from some of those things and then change. Now there are very good substantive laws regarding how to address these things, but some of those action would have to come from the lawyers themselves. At least they would have to have the ability, or the willingness rather, I think that's the right word. They must have the willingness to at least do their job, as required. And then what I have learned, what stood out to me, unlike the United States, and then being a lawyer in the Gambia, you are pretty much confident that your license is almost guaranteed. You don't have to worry too much. Like here, the way I have to, watch out how I practice, and then every day you wake up, you have to know that your license could be in jeopardy if you do not address the need of your client appropriately. And then I think this trial brought all those things to light from a legal standpoint, and even from this citizen standpoint. That's what it exposed to me. I came to believe that Jambe was not, in as much as he's a big factor in the judiciary, he's not the only problem of Gambian judiciary, and then that has been proven in this trial.
I mean, that is very important. I remember saying this when the Bob Keita case was ongoing, and I kept saying, look, the Solo Sandeng's dead body was still lying at the mortuary. He was not buried because the case was still ongoing. I mean, even those NIA 9 who were in mile 2, whatever they must have done, they deserve to have speedy trial, because that is their right? And there are so many other people like Bob Keita and so many other cases where people who, I know this case where a child is involved, he's still kept in Gambia because this trial has not even got to a beginning stage, up to 5 years now. Now, people's life have been affected because of cases not taking, not going on as they are supposed to be. Now, what you mentioned the part of the lawyers and also the judges. Now, what do you think is responsible for this? Why is it that the cases are going so slowly? You go to court, sometimes they'll tell you the judge is not here because maybe it's a family issue, or sometimes the defense lawyer comes in and say, oh, today I don't, they bring up excuses when everybody is there. I know this for a fact. So why do you think, is it because you mentioned the license issue? This has to do with the Bar Association as well. Because if people are held accountable for what they do, I think they will know that the lives, the people that are representing, their lives really matter. Why do you think this has been an issue in our judicial system?
Without, based on my observation, and then based on what I hear from other people, my conclusion, without being, although it would be considered a little bit of speculation, would be three major factors. Now, whenever there's backlog in trial, the most obvious is docket management. Maybe we have more cases pending than judges sitting on the bench, and then if that is the case, for instance, let's say you have 100,000 cases pending in lower courts, or subordinate courts, or even from high courts, part of superior courts, and then these are all trial courts. And then he said we have 100,000 cases pending, and then we have 10 judges covering all these things, and then meaning disproportionately judges would have a large docket. What I expect that would reflect in the judiciary at the end of the year when they submit their budget, or however they do it in Gambia, when our justice ministry and then all the judiciaries submit their budget, they should indicate and then justify that this is the number of cases that are pending, this is the number of cases that are active on the docket, and then this is the number of judges we need in order to resolve this. If they are publicly bringing that out, the president would know, National Assembly would know, and then that way they could allocate the appropriate budget for those people to take care of it. Now, without those numbers, I can only speculate that's a factor, but I wouldn't know. Maybe that's out there. I stand to be corrected, but that's what I would expect as professionals to at least put it out there, because that's how we do it here. Justice Ministry would come, Department of Justice would put their budget, Homeland Security, let them know these are the number of judges we need. This is how the cases are affected. The other part is too, it could be judges themselves. Every judge, in as much as we have rule, you control your own courtroom. You have those local rules where you do docket management, right? And then Gambia, this is where there's a split between Gambia and here. Gambia, follow almost to the letter, like how trials are conducted in the United Kingdom, in terms of pre-trial with, if you would call pre-trial there, but in terms of how trials are done. So if cases come to court, pleadings are taken usually, plea hearing, and then initial trial starts. Once defendant plead not guilty, trial automatically starts right there. And then I don't know how judges manage their docket, but unlike here, usually even after initial arraignment, judges would have pre-trial. During pre-trial, they would have a scheduling order or scheduling conferences. At least they would know when all pre-trial motions need to be filed. There would be a deadline on everything. Okay, prosecutions, you have 2 months to file any pre-trial motion. Defense, you got 30 days to respond to any pre-trial motion, file any motion in limine. Trial is going to start X date, and then we are only going to allocate a day or two for trial. Especially most of these short trial, it could take a day. Most of the trial in Gambia should not take more than a day. Let's say if it is simple shoplifting and whatnot. Even the most complicated trial, like a trial like Bob Keita's trial in Gambia, if there is no way that trial is going to last more than a week. Maybe they would give.
Sandra, I want to interject in here. Now, when we have political cases come in, it takes a week or two, it's done. What is the difference between these cases and these criminal cases? Is it that it's more difficult because the police have to investigate, they have to make sure they have all the evidences? Why is it so different that when we have election petitions here, 2-3 days they are done? When we have other cases like candidates filing to be on a ballot and all that stuff, it takes days. They prioritize those. It takes days. Why is it different? Is that different to all of these cases? Because I don't understand.
Well, elections are special. And then even these challenges, those are time sensitive.
But some of them are not even, like, sometimes it's not even election time.
Well,
because I do remember the Silfo Sonko versus the UDP case. That was not even during elections. It's just normal cycle, right? And it was taken to court, but it was really quick. So it seems like the political cases and other cases go very fast. And criminal and other cases take a longer time. Is that a difference? Is that a reason for that?
It depends on the judges. Technically, criminal cases should move even faster because liberty is at stake, especially if someone is detained. Even here, detention get priority over no detained matters, right? And then if it is election where those are time sensitive, we don't want to create a vacuum in the public space, especially in the presidential election. Those things must move fast because you have constitutional deadline where someone need to be sworn in. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But for Sonko's case, for instance, where UDP, the claim was UDP has ousted him from their party, and then by virtue of firing him or at least removing him from the party, he lost his seat. But remember, there's already a precedent in Gambia, during Yakumba's case, where Supreme Court believed that anything done by public officials, there's a presumption of regularity. So meaning it's okay. So the time is not of the essence. Srifo case could be going on why he maintained his position. Once the court says otherwise, then the other person could go there, just like how Yakumba Jade's case went into effect. So maybe it could be the judge in that manner who was, judicious, wanted to handle things, appropriately, and then the lawyers on both sides were on top of their game. They want things to go right away. That's one factor. Now, for criminal cases, one would presume you don't arrest without PC, probable cause. At least you investigate the crime before you arrest someone. You should have the initial evidence that at least give you probable cause that someone should be arrested, right? Now, Gambia police could actually bring you in and then arrest you while they are investigating. Still, even under our constitution, within 72 hours, charges must be given. So let's say even if they charge you for one offense, while, that trial is going on, they can investigate. But what I would expect, and I hope, what training should, focus should be from the Ministry of Justice, most of these crimes, there's statute of limitation for a long period of time. And then others, there's, it's unlimited. There's no statute of limitation, for instance, murder, manslaughter, and others. So there's no rust. Effectively investigate. And then once you conduct your arrest, at the very minimum, once you made that arrest, the prosecution is ready to move forward. That's one issue with it. The other issue we are having is Gambia, where we allow police prosecutors to prosecute, some of these minor offenses. And I think, we inherited this problem from during the colonial time, because by then we don't have capacity or resources in the Ministry of Justice, state prosecutors to handle all cases, even in the provinces. But I think now, since 95, when we come to a constitutional democracy, we are no longer in parliamentary democracy. My approach would have been, we limit our police officers to investigations. And then every division, we should have a state attorney, which would be a delegate of the Attorney General with an office with assistant state attorneys, where they would prosecute each and every criminal offense in the Gambia as part of the PPP. Police officers should never investigate crimes and then actually prosecute them. If they want to be prosecutors, let them put the uniform down and then join the state attorney's office. And then while they are doing investigation, they can work with assistant state attorneys to see whether to bring charges. They will be reviewing their evidence, whether we can even use this evidence in trial. It kind of helps them. It's a symbiotic relationship, but each is limited to their part. That would move things faster. The other part is, under Gambia law, except for capital offenses, you don't get appointment of a criminal lawyer, meaning you have to hire your own lawyer, right? And what I have realized in Gambia, the idea of growth, I think Gambia, most of the early lawyers, we emulate a lot from the UK, where they would have a chamber. You could come and say, let's say, okay, this is Serakunda Chambers, but you would have different baristas, each working separately as an enterprise of its own, but they would all be in the same chambers, paying a fee to maybe a legal secretary, but each is working separately or independently, kill it what you kill kind of situation, rather than forming partnership or actual law firm, which is more predominant in the US, and then having several lawyers working over there. That way, we know if we, take cases of clients, I know, okay, me, Isha, and then Fatou, this is ABC law firm. We are all partners here. We have junior associate attorneys here. If we take cases, we know we have an attorney representing each case. But what happened, you would have one lawyer in Gambia predominantly take on so many cases. And then what end up happening is you have a sitting in Brikama, a sitting in Kanifing and Banjul, and you are just one person. So what I would have expected, either delegate some other attorney, ask them to do an appearance for you for one of the matters, and then you go to one and then pay other person. But people would not, most lawyers would not do that. They just show up to the one maybe that pay them more money, or where they think it's convenient for them to do. The other two cases, sometimes, for lack of better word, they could call their colleagues at the Ministry of Justice. Can you request an adjournment for me, and then we move this case, without even clients knowing this is what's happening? Because this is some of the things I hear from people. And then they would just represent to the client, oh, the court case has been canceled. You don't even know why, because there is no transparency in that communication. Or sometimes you don't even show up, judges would move the cases. That's happening. If I were to do that here, the next thing, I'm getting an official email from my Office of Lawyers Regulation. I would be lucky to keep that license. And then I have been in that situation. There are times where, like we have scheduling orders here. When I was in private practice, right? And then I would have a hearing today in maybe I have a master calendar, which is basically like an arraignment, right? In a court in Chicago, and then maybe there's one in New York, right? And then if I can be at both places at the same time, I have to have my colleague appear on my behalf at that hearing while I'm at the other places. But for individual, like trial itself merits, you have to make sure you have your schedule and docket coordinated. If you cannot take on a matter, you don't take more than you could cure at the same time, because it would impact your license. But Gambia, I think we are not having so much regulation in that part, and then lawyers are contributing to that part, and then some of the judges actually entertain those things, and then that's creating a lot of backlog in the country. So that's why I said the blame goes everywhere. Lawyers do make contribution there, and then judges are also contributing to that, and then our system is not helping us for that too.
Esa, that gives us an insight as to how our judicial system stands. But going back to this particular case, Esa, you touched on something that is very important here: the victim. Now, this case has become very emotional for some people, and it has been more of you're either this camp or you're this camp. And I think we can decide not to be on any camp and just speak freely about what we believe. And what we have seen is people who are in either this side or this side believes nobody should have an opinion, and that is wrong. This is a democracy, and people should have opinions, whether they believe in what you believe in or they believe otherwise. And what we have also seen is this, the culture of rape, people reporting rape. That's where my concern is. I think we must establish here, there are thousands of people who are being raped across the world daily. And rape is something that is not acceptable in any society in this world. But we must also understand that people cannot falsely accuse people to destroy their lives. These are things that we must establish. When people believe in a cause and believe that if somebody reports that he or she was raped, they have the right. They should be listened to. They should be given an ear to listen to. Now, this particular case, after the announcement of the DNA results, what we have seen is people calling other people names because they were on this other side, and other people attacking feminism, and other people saying now, we are even going to not talk about this issue. So it has brought a lot of debate in our social media space. And this is something we must speak about. We should talk about it, because as opinion leaders, we cannot just sit down and say, just because people are going to say something, we should not speak. Now, there are real victims out there. The consequences of our actions will have impact on those people. Now, I am one person who believes that nobody should accuse people when they have no business in your life and when they have not done anything to you. But I also have the belief, I am of the belief that when people are raped, I don't know if I have the guts to ever say that somebody has touched me or done something inappropriate to me. A lot of us were brought up in homes where we cannot speak about any of these things. When something like this happens in our society, what we say, hey, and this is how we were raised. This is how we were brought up, and we don't speak up to today. I did say this to a friend yesterday. I said, I do know that I still doesn't have those guts to come out and say anything like this if it ever happened to me, even though I'm in the public space, because it was the way I was raised. But I also applaud those who have the guts to come out and say it, because by saying it, you're enlightening people to talk about these things that are happening, because it's happening. Now, that is why it's important for us to also be sensitive to other rape victims, other victims of any abuse that ever happened, because it's important. But when we come out and seem very, very, very insensitive to other things, because we are concentrating on this case, but there are other people who are also victims of these things. So it's important that we talk about this, Esa, because if not, what we are going to legitimize is this: people who have been abused, who have been inappropriately touched or raped, will never have the guts to speak up. And that, as a society, we don't want to encourage, Esa.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense. When this trial started, I remember. You remember one of the shows we had prior to the show when you said we had to discuss this. I said I have very limited opinion on this matter, because Gambia is a country where any issue that comes up, like, everybody is a lawyer when there's a legal matter before the court.
Yeah.
Everybody becomes a religious figure or a preacher or an imam when there is a religious issue.
Yeah.
Everybody becomes a social commentator when there's a social issue. So everybody becomes an expert, and depending on what issue is at hand. And I try to run away from that. But then if you look at the people, a lot of, when this thing, started, this case has been going on for more than 2 years now. A lot of people did not pay attention. A lot of people that are talking about it today were not even aware that these things started 2 years ago. But then, for me, what was more disturbing was, why would we have, people to say, I'm in this camp, and others saying, I'm in this other camp? You see, if someone feels that, he or she is being appropriately touched, or someone is raped, for instance, the person has all rights to report that matter. And it is also the responsibility of society, members of society, to listen to that person.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like you said, if like what has been said here, at some point, people may not have the guts to come out and say or report these things. I've seen people. Last month or 2 months ago, I've interacted with a young lady who told me that she was raped when she was young. But this is something that she has never talked to anybody, okay, in her life. I think I'm the second or third person that she, talked to about this. But that was something. This was when she was at a younger age. But so it begs the question: at some point, why will people say, okay, it's not true, she was not raped?
Yeah.
But then you also have other people who will tell you that he did it. What evidence do you have that he did it? He raped this guy. What evidence do you have to say it was never done? Okay. And at some point I said, these divided Gambians along, into two camps. It became us versus them, especially on feminist lines. Some will say, these feminists, these angry feminists and all that. And you have others who will say, I'm a feminist. I don't care how you brand me or how you, paint me. But for me, what is important here is, society has a responsibility to listen to the victims, but also the one that is being accused is innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
I've had this conversation with one lady who was saying, no, if someone is accused of rape, okay, you have to distance yourself from that person until the person is clear. I said, no, you can't do that. You can't just say that because, okay, Bob is accused of rape and everybody has to disown Bob until the court said otherwise, to say, okay, no, Bob is not guilty. No, we can't do that, because that person also might have been falsely accused, like we have seen in this case. Saying that Bob is the father, Bob is the one who impregnated the girl, it turned out to be a lie, because at the end of the day, the DNA is proving otherwise. It's telling us that Bob is not the father of this child. So it means the girl that is Senabu's sister had lied, not only to the court but to the entire Gambia, that Bob is the father. Bob is the one who impregnated her. And that's why I said this child who died, very innocent, deserves, people should know who is the father. He has a father. Somebody, I mean, victimized this girl. Somebody raped her. She was a minor. And people have the right to know who is the father. And I don't know what legal measures can be taken. Maybe Sergio can help us in that. But in my layperson opinion, I think the state also could, push this matter to go further to find out, because her right is being violated, even though she lied that Bob is the father of the child, in line with the DNA, if we have to go by that. But, she was raped. She was raped. By who? And it seems like I said, a lot of people are not concerned about that. People tend to forget about that. She has her right being violated. She was raped. She was a victim of rape. And somebody somewhere has to stand for her. Okay? But people also have to bear in mind that, like I said, we can't just because someone is accused and you want everybody to say, like, okay, when you even try to explain to some people that, look, this person is innocent until proven guilty, they also call you rape apologist. Do you understand? At some point, Fatou, like you said, some people were scared to say the opinion on this, to say, okay, they stand for the victim because they refuse to be named.
It was scary. It was scary. Even on shows, it was scary. At some point, you were so calculative as to what you say, because you're like, I don't want to offend any camp. Like, there shouldn't be any camps.
So that's what I'm saying. So people should be interested in justice here. And when we say justice, it's not about, okay, Bob is the one that we're concerned about, or the girl or the baby. We're interested in the truth. We're interested in justice. At the end of the day, justice must prevail. Like I said, people were scared at some point to say, okay, I feel the victim's pain, because once you even say that, somebody will come and attack you. But also at some point, people were even afraid to say, okay, Bob is innocent, until proven guilty. Because when you say that, you have other camp who will also come and say, you are a rape apologist. And people at some point were scared to even express their opinions on this. But I think also, the way we take cases in this country, like I said, everybody has become an expert. And Sergio can also help us with that. I know there was, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the Chief Justice, Office of the Chief Justice, I think, issued a statement when this case was going on, regarding people commenting on cases when they are before the courts.
And the bar,
I think that is a norm in the...
And the bar,
exactly. To the extent that people have to, shows, live program shows, talking about this case, people expressing their opinion. I think the judge did this. I think the lawyer should have done. I think, no, this is a matter before court. You're not an expert in this area. Allow the people to do their job. What some people were calling for was genuine. That yes, we need speedy and fair trial for Bob. And that, like I said, should not only stop at Bob, but should also extend beyond him. And like what Sergio said, it's good that it's coming out, that it is not only the fault of the judges or the system, but also the lawyers contribute to this. And if you look at this, that's why I said, in the past, we have seen the state, losing cases. Also, the state could not find Bob guilty. At the end of the day, if you're not mindful, how about if the same thing happens to Senabo as well? It means like the state is, and that's why it's important, like you said, you make sure that you do your investigations. You have evidence against these people before you put them on trial, because at the end of the day, these people can also sue the state for the damages and all that might also come. So financially, is the state ready to take care of all those compensations and all that? So that's something that people also have to put into consideration. But also, there's one thing that is important for us to take note of. Like I said earlier, it's not only about Bob, Senabo, the girl who's been raped, and also the child who died, but also the two daughters of Bob and Senabo. I'm speaking from a social perspective, but then also it could have consequences, even political consequences, in the sense that we know the society that we come from. That here, if you want to even venture into politics, you'll say, somebody will say, so these are people, these are kids that will grow up in our society. Tomorrow, even if they want to contest for public office or run for public office, you will see somebody somewhere will start saying that and all that. The trauma that these people will go through. And it seems like a lot of people tend to forget these people. People just were interested, oh, Bob being free, or people were just interested, let Bob be sentenced, or people are just interested, let Senabu be sentenced, or people are just interested, this girl child has her right in violence, he was raped. And no, but also about these two kids of Bob and Senabu. How will society accommodate them? How will they fit in society? How will they contribute meaningfully to development at the end of the day? Because we, like I said, in our society, we tend to, kind of, how do you put it again? Try to label these people, try to give them names, try to the stigma that they go through, and it traumatizes them at some point. The stigmatization that they will have to go through at the end of the day, that also matters a lot. But for me, the bottom line, like I said, our judicial system, although the confidence has been there since the change of government, people have trust and confidence in the judiciary. But I think at some point too, people start raising questions just because of the nature of trials in this country. They're not, we don't have speedy and fair, mostly, let me say, speedy trial. But like we said, I mean, justice delayed is justice denied. So the judiciary really, the government, the National Assembly, this should be a learning point for all, stakeholders, all actors, to make sure that we have a serious reform in our judiciary system to make sure that we have speedy and fair trial for accused persons.
Thank you, Esa. If you're just joining us, we are also live on our TikTok page at Kerr Fatou. Now, Sajo, the stigmatization being the accused and the victim, what impact does it have on all of them? Bob went to prison. He was labeled all names by the other camp. And Seinabu had the sister, and even their kids. The stigmatization of people when trials are on. Let's talk about that. But also, Esa brought up something very important. There was a time during the opening of the legal year, the Chief Justice and even the bar, they spoke about people talking about cases. You live in the United States. Today, I mean, I'm just watching the January 6th hearing here, right? Yesterday, the Alex Jones case. Every single day on the news, they talk about all details. In fact, they will talk about the merits of the case. They will talk about things they know before even, like, if the DOJ is filing something in the courts tomorrow and they're able to get hold of it today, they bring it out. These things, it seems like we're still stuck in the old way of doing things. And I mean, some of us, when court cases are going, they tell you talk about it, they can charge you for contempt of court. So you're limited. Should that be the normal way of doing things up to now in Gambia?
No, actually, it's not. It seems like we're actually stuck in the past.
Okay.
It's a rule we inherited from, 16th, 17th century from England common law system, where lawyers, you don't talk about cases. You cannot even advertise your service.
Yeah.
Supposedly, if you're a good lawyer, it would get back to you by word of mouth. And we literally have these things in our book, Legal Practitioner Act. We still have it here. Do we have it in the US? Yes, we do. But since the 40s, lawyers challenged some of these rules, and it went all the way to Supreme Courts. And then Supreme Court was like, you can't do this, And then starting with Bates v. Arizona, where, commercial advertisement by lawyers, as long as the publication or the communication you are putting out there is truthful, there's no harm, no foul. If you put a false statement there, we have, rules of, professional conduct that regulate lawyers, and then you would be disciplined there. And then even now, like most states, if you looked at the, American Bar Association, where they would actually make model rules of professional conduct, and most states, copied from those things. And then in rule, I think rule 3.6, we still have, advocates or lawyers making public statement. Yeah. And then the restriction as it stands in the US is like a lawyer who actually participated or is participating in investigation or some kind of litigation should not make, extrajudicial statement that or reasonably should know will, be disseminated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing and or the matter before the bar, before the court. Here we have a jury trial, And sometimes you would see, to some extent, lawyers would file gag order to make so you don't want to poison the potential jurors. But even with this rule, there are exceptions. These, like this specific rule, the exceptions are a lawyer who in fact is participating or participated in a matter is free publicly to state what the claim is, the offenses, the defenses to whatever is alleged against their client, except things that are of personal identity or attorney-client privilege. You cannot, disclose those things. Information contained in public record, like any filing that happened in court, sitting happened, those are public record. You can speak of it. That an investigation of the matter is in progress. You could speak about that. The scheduling or results of every step in the litigation. You can talk about those things. Assistance in obtaining evidence and information necessary. Like if I'm a defense lawyer, I could make a public statement. For instance, in Bob's case, if there is anyone who could be a character witness or knows that there is a reason that someone is lying against my client, please come forward to my office. I want this, exculpatory evidence in my case, or warning dangers. Let's say, you are representing a company that is, putting toxic in our water, or, there is a violent criminal who is out there. You have to warn the public about the dangers that are coming. And then in criminal cases, like the identity, resident, occupation, and family status of the accused, those things, like there are some places you could restrict those things, but others you would have to bring it. But like if the criminal has been apprehended, the information necessary to aid in apprehension, you could give all those information. The fact, time, or place of the arrest, people could give those things. The identity of the investigation, or even the arresting officers. And then there are comments about this, because the rule is we want to make sure the public has a right to trial. And then what I would have expected or hope is a trial like Bob Keita trial is the equivalent of our Amber Heard or, like major trials in the US. We should have media houses covering those trials and live streaming it for Gambians to see. But the fear we have, the Gambian in us, that dictatorial tendency, we are all afraid of having our work product being put in the public, because either we are afraid we are not doing the right thing, or we would be scrutinized or incompetent.
I mean, I think the only judge to give access to the cameras when he was delivering his judgment was Justice Jete.
And it should not be like that.
The Yankuba Toure case, he knew there was public interest in that case. He opened the cameras. He opened the law for the cameras to live stream it for the wider audience, and that was commendable. And I think if you believe in, I think that should be something that we should
be from the start of the trial. And then it's about time the news media actually take their rightful place. If trials of public concerns like this are happening, go there with their camera and then in fact, if you know the trial is about to start, arrest happen, write to the court and then let them know that, look, we wanted to live stream these things, and then make appropriate, as long as security concerns are okay, meaning, safety. I know that would be the initial red herring. They would put their security issues. But those things should be there. And then if they said no, that way, you would have ample time to challenge those things at Supreme Court if it violated, because I am with the firm belief that media should have access in those courts, and then we have a public hearing system. That's what we have. And then that way people would know. It would force people to be on top of their game if you make mistake, but everyone is so afraid, as if, our skeletons in the closet have been put out there. I think that's why the restriction, and then we keep it this way. And then regarding the prejudice against people who report sexual assault, or even those accused of sexual assault, it comes back to lack of understanding about our laws. Lawyers are not talking about it. And then we have these old rules that we inherited. And then even the younger ones that comes through, and then the ones we have now, you would think most of the Gambian lawyers are educated outside the Gambia, even before the coming of
law school,
law school in 2014, around that time. The senior members of the bar, most of them are highly educated outside, and then they know what are the practice outside. So it raised the question, why haven't they sit together and then think about this issue and, want things to be progressive? If a government do something wrong, the bar association would come with a powerful letter and then critique the government of doing all these crazy things. This is bringing us back, derogation of right. We want to move, we want to be progressive, but you're not progressive in your own house. So sometimes, to me, I was like, you're not serious. If you want to be ready game day, it starts with you. Start reforming yourself, and then ask the same about the government. You think the executive would heed to your advice if they know you yourself, you don't want change within your system? The rules you are working on are so old. You don't want to change it. You are protecting yourself as an institution, whether it's the judiciary or the bar as an association. The executive would never listen to you because they know you are doing exactly the same thing to protect your own pecuniary interests. So that is the problem we are having in Gambia. If we had, lawyers or even experts commenting on issues, they would shed light about criminal trial. Like, we all grew up in the Gambia. Of course, we know sexual assault and sexual violence is pervasive in that community, in that country. We don't want to talk about it. And then what I expect of every Gambian is, if someone come out and raise issues about this thing, we should say yes. While we think that you have an unlimited audience and right to express your fear, and we are going to welcome you, if you point to a specific individual that has committed this crime, the community must afford them that presumption of innocence that our laws create, at least to protect their interests. Because unlike the Gambia, in the West, if you get accused of sexual assault or criminal sexual conduct, it almost ruins your reputation. It's almost impossible to come back. Our community is different, so that's why we have to give that presumption, but it all comes to sensitization. And then that way, if someone goes through the legal process, if these conversations are going on, we would know what it actually meant. And then people would know when a verdict comes from court, those are legal verdicts. And then it doesn't mean it discredits the woman or not. Now, for Bob Keita's specific case, as yesterday, as I learned, like he was, discharged and acquitted of the crime of, rape itself. What that means legally, Bob Keita did not rape that lady.
Yes.
Forget about paternity or whatnot. Legally, he did not rape that girl. That's what that verdict means. If you are found not guilty of a crime, legally, the prosecution could not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a legal verdict. It's not an actual innocence. Now, for instance, if you want to come back and sue the state on malicious prosecution, before the law just changed about 2 months ago, U.S. Supreme Court has decided this specific issue in Thompson. Prior to that, Second Circuit and most of the circuit, you want to sue for malicious prosecution. Not only would you prove that the prior matter was terminated and terminated in your favor, you have to proffer affirmative evidence of actual innocence, what they call factual innocence, in order to win on that. Ninth Circuit was the unicorn in that area. And then Supreme Court decided this matter just recently and then changed the rule. Like, no, we are not going to ask you to prove actual innocence. Those things are only happen. People like in the United States, people who are wrongfully convicted, and then you want to file a habeas petition. The only time, most of the time, the way you win on habeas petition, you have to prove factual or actual innocence. That's why you have all this innocent defender project. They would come in, maybe a little DNA, like at the crime scene. That's actual innocence. We are not talking about legal innocence. So there is a lot of intricacies about this case that I think would be a learning point for the Gambia. Hopefully, the legal practitioners over there would explain to the people and then manage expectations for people to understand. And then that way, moving forward, at least now there is a legal verdict from the court, whether people like it or not. They have to respect that. And then for Bob's kid, and then the young man should have his freedom and then move on. And then at least the society should see him. The reason why they said, if you get charged, you have that presumption of innocence. If the courts find you guilty, it brings you back to the status before you were arrested. So nothing should change in his, from, it's not a perfect world, but under the eye of the law, if it's a perfect world, that's how they should see Bob. 3 years ago, how you see Bob Keita. After the verdict yesterday, that's how you should see him 3 years ago, as if this thing was not there. Now, it doesn't mean, from a legal standpoint, oh yeah, someone has been arrested, but the court found them guilty. That's the fact. But my point is, as a society, like if he applied for employment, if he's applying for loan, and then if he's applying for anything, from under the eye of the law, you have to look at him as you have seen him 3 or 4 years ago before this allegation come through. That doesn't mean the complainant, who actually alleged this crime. At least we know, if the information we receive, like she was a minor when this thing happened, so we know under the law a crime had occurred. Because how do we know that? she was pregnant and then she gave birth to a child. So at least, unless there is a second coming of Miriam, we know at least she had a man had violated her right. So at least we know a crime is committed. Like as how Isa said, we want to know the father. Like from my point of view, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to know. I think frankly that's irrelevant, and then that's where rape seed laws should come in to protect women. And then from a legal point of view, the case fell apart, in my opinion. Either the prosecution did not do their job right.
Yeah. Because Esa, Saja, I want to come in there. This was not a paternity case. This was a rape case, right? And I mean, I saw something that my Fati wrote yesterday. The DNA became Bob's biggest asset, right? But normally, this was not even a paternity case. This was a rape case, right? So did you think that the prosecution from the initial stage, even the way they handled the case, because there were two people that were involved, the Pamodu Jom guy and Bob, and just Bob alone being prosecuted and all of that, did you think the prosecution spoiled the case from even the initial stage?
Yes, there's a lot of mistake in my opinion that they did.
Yeah.
But claiming this is not a paternity case, I gotta thank lawyer Khadija and then LS Camera. That's smart lawyering. They're just doing their peacock dance from my point of view. Putting a right here in there. That's what defense counsel do.
Yeah.
The only loyalty they owe is to their client.
Yeah.
Prosecutors, you represent the state. That's why it states state versus XYZ. You represent everybody, including the accused, to make sure each right is protected. Now, Gambians, it's just lack of understanding. People would claim this is not paternity test.
Okay.
Rape, if you understand rape, here statutory rape happened. And then from a prosecutor's point of view, the elements you must prove that 1, the girl is underage, and then 2, someone had carnal knowledge with her. It doesn't matter whether she consented or not, right? And then because under Gambia law, we still have this common law requirement where you must corroborate each and every element of rape in order to secure a conviction. So from a prosecution standpoint, if a young lady came to you and then confirmed that, she was raped, regardless of what matter, she's pregnant and then gave birth, and then she was able to identify, point to you, Mr. X is responsible. And then you ask, are there any witnesses to this crime? No, I was the only one. At least if you take her word for it, she said that she was raped. And then she pointed to the identity of the victim. So how do I corroborate this as a prosecutor? Well, by IDing the individual, I know I have one. How do I corroborate that? The lady said she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And then she believed the accuser is the father of the child. You have probable cause. That's material evidence where DNA would be required. It has nothing to do with paternity. You are just corroborating an element of the offense. And then at that point, you would secure a search warrant from the court to at least draw the blood of the accused to make sure whether it's a match. Just like how if you have blood at a crime scene here, DNA and others, prosecution would apply for search warrant. It's the same standard. There's no way about it. Every defense attorney knows that. You cannot, circumvent that. Now, in terms of identity, if that DNA is a match, not only are you having the victim pointing to the accused, but the DNA would corroborate that identity element. In terms of penetration, at least she tells you she was pregnant. She's pregnant, at least it's presumed. But a doctor's report, like you're saying, sexual nurse examiner's report, will like, yes, I examined this individual. They had knowledge of that person. So that's where it would go. But my point of view, what I understand, if the facts are correct, again, this case came to the prosecution after the girl gave birth. If you did an interview, in as much as we don't have DNA in Gambia, that was the right time to at least request search warrant and then conduct those things before you even jump the gun to
keep somebody
bring charges. I wouldn't even file charges. I would investigate it. I know I have enough. At least you have probable cause to make an arrest. But can I secure a conviction at the time? It's a if. Since I don't have no other eyewitnesses or no other person to corroborate this story, I would have conducted DNA and then you would get a search warrant. If DNA affirm it, you would proceed with the trial. If you don't have that, you could let the witness know, look, I don't have any other way to corroborate this case. unless you believe there's some other, medical evidence that could corroborate her claim. You say, we would go to trial, but it's a 50-50. Or as a prosecutor, you could assess it and say, I cannot secure a conviction here. I'm not going to go forward, but you could do civil suit if you want. The standard is lower there. That's how you assess it. But you haven't done that. But let's say you also interview a witness. Any 15-year-old Gambian girl under our community, as a prosecutor, you interview them, and then you understand the background they are coming from. You have to assure them that, look, my job here is not to judge you. I'm not here to judge about your morality, and then I'll make sure the court protect that. What I want to know, I know you are pregnant. I need to know if you are sexually active with a lot of people. That is okay. And then it's not going to come out of court. I would file any motion in limine that I need to know. Will protect that, under rape shield laws. But it would help me in my prosecution. There's nothing wrong with that. So at least if you prepare the witness, because she's looking at it from other point of view as a Gambian, someone in the community. If she is afraid or scared, and then just give you the information that's out there, oh no, this is my boyfriend, and then this other person, the accused, and then she lie to you about that. And then further lie that, oh, I only have, intimacy with only Mr. X. You did not investigate more. And then you put that witness on the stand, and then she swear on the oath that the only person she slept with is Mr. X. And then a DNA came, found that Mr. X is not the father of the child. In as much as a crime, her credibility is shot.
Yeah.
You cannot prove the element of your claim anymore. That's why you would discontinue the prosecution. Not because what she's telling you from a legal standpoint that a crime did not occur to her, but you cannot prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt, because now you don't have any other witness that could give you that direct testimony, and then the circumstantial evidence would fail. So as a matter of law, you have to just stop prosecution. That's your job. But they could have managed that. Flip the story. If a witness comes to you, yes, I slept with many people. It's just a possibility that the accused could be the father or not. That would not set your credibility, and then the trial would have continued.
Could have continued.
So the prosecution either did not do their homework or did their homework, rely on a witness statement that is faulty, and then they know now they get cornered in a box, and then you have to withdraw. But public's expectation from the standpoint could have been managed if lawyers are talking about these things from the onset, and then let communities know, look, there's no problem. You could be on either side. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That's public opinion. But in the court of law, this is what we expect. That way, if it's your turn, you could have the same expectation that the rule would be the same, regardless of other people's opinion. That's what we should have known. And then that's what did not happen.
And finally, before we close this and go to the AKI, can Bob sue the state or any other parties in this and seek for compensation? Because his life was put on hold for 2.5 years. Can he do that?
But in Gambia, we don't have statute. I don't know of any statute where you could do. Like here, we have under Title 42, what we call Section 1983 claims.
Yeah.
And then if Bob wanted to file, even in these instances, you say, okay, look, I'm going to sue the state because of what can I think of that you would at least,
My business was destroyed when I was away. My livelihood all gone because I was away.
Let's say, because if they arrest him at his home, unlawful entry, false arrest, and then malicious prosecution, which would be the big one.
Yeah.
He has to prove there's no probable cause in this case, and then he would lose. You have to prove there's no probable cause for the state to effect that arrest, and then you will lose on the malicious prosecution. Now, since we do not have actual statute that require, for instance, if National Assembly enact a statute that says, hey, if you arrest somebody and then you took them to trial and then they are found not guilty and then acquitted, you must pay or reimburse all their reasonable legal fees. That would be reasonable. And then people can live with that. But since we don't have those laws, if he wants to move even under common law, or even under the Constitution by saying, hey, the state violated my fundamental right under Chapter 17 coming down, stating that the arrest was, I was falsely arrested or falsely detained or false imprisonment, he would lose because there is at least a probable cause for the state to make that arrest. Just because, as the Supreme Court held, Just because there is a verdict of not guilty doesn't actually mean that the state doesn't have probable cause to arrest. And then most people lose on that requirement. And then it's a different thing if you want to go, let's say you want to go after the complainant, even in a civil matter. At least even in that, you still have to go, the trial that just concluded, which actually ended is terminated in his favor, but he has to prove that there is no probable cause, and then there was malice in bringing the complaint, meaning vindictive, motive in reporting a crime that is completely false, and then damages, you could prove that. But when it comes to malice, even with a reporting of the crime, you will lose, because the birth certificate of that minor with a birth of a child prove that a crime happened.
Yeah.
So it becomes a credibility context, but at least a reasonable person, because that's what you looked at when it comes to that probable cause. Would a reasonable attorney, even if they investigated, think that this case is tenable? The answer would always come back to yes. So I think, like I said, National Assembly and then all of us could learn a lot here. A lot could be changed in our system to make sure some of those protections are there. But most importantly, bail reform is what Gambia needs. We need to remove Section 99 from our CPC, where, anyone, that is charged with a capital offense or a charge that carries life imprisonment, you are not entitled to bail. And then since Supreme Court has not decided on the constitutionality of that, National Assembly could just, in one of their sittings, change that. When they want to protect themselves about being fired from a political party and not losing a job, they just delete the section, within overnight. Gambians could go there and tell them, remove this. That way, everyone is entitled to bail unless we think that you are a danger to the public or a flight risk. They could put, some restriction. It could be easily done.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need. That way, even if people who do not have lawyers, their cases are taking longer, but at least they are sleeping healthy at a home.
They're able to go on with their business until they're.
I think that's where the focus should be, rather than on other issues.
There's so much other things that the focus should also be on, like our health system. If we have had a DNA testing in Gambia, it would have been easier for prosecution before even bringing up this case to say, let's do a DNA quickly. I mean, it just took a few hours to go to Ghana in less than a day or two to do this test and bring it back home. And Ghana is in West Africa as well, just like we are. Now, that is something that our focus should be on, our healthcare system, our education system. But at this point, we're going to talk about our healthcare, the AKI. We have an outbreak recently, and the government came out. The president spoke to the nation, and that really brought a lot of backlash because of some things that he said in his speech. But I think they knew that was the community, the society didn't receive that well. The Ministry of Health, the minister himself came out the day after on a Saturday at 8 o'clock to talk to the nation. I think this time the minister was really very, I don't know how to say it. He was really, he tried to humanize the situation, because a lot of us didn't see that in the president's statement. It didn't have any emotions. It was like this was a normal thing. Look, our maternal death is around this figure, so this is okay. But when the minister came out, actually his tone was totally different. He also made clarification to say the president's making those comparisons doesn't mean he didn't have emotions about that. He didn't feel bad about the situation. He did indeed. In fact, the president knows about losing a child because he lost one. And the minister himself gave an example of losing one of his, I think, nieces, he said, to this. Now, a lot of people, some people say, okay, that's a start. That's a good start. The license of the pharmaceutical company was also suspended. People wanted it to be revoked. People wanted the MCA to be to be suspended, and people wanted the minister to resign, which he said there's no point for that. Now, I know in other countries that would have been the thing, in you would come to that, but Esa, when you hear, I saw your reaction to the president's speech. Now, what is your reaction to Dr. Samate's speech, especially where he said there's no point in him resigning. What good will it do for him to resign? Why should he resign, Esa?
Well, I think we have to put in the context here leadership, and leadership is about responsibility. At some point, when the praises come, you take them, for the good that have been done, in your workplace or your organization, but also, when there are blames, you shoulder the responsibility. And of course, we all know that what happened in this situation, it was just out of negligence that we're able to, have these drugs here. But then also it gets us back to the point, what is the root cause of this? Some will say, well, the line scenes, some people are conflicted. They are players at the same time, they are referees, holding line scenes and then, have partnership, because people use the word rent, but I think there was during the press conference.
The MCA, one of the ladies said we should not call it rent. We should say partnerships.
He said partnership and not rent. So that happened. But I think also people do hear this term being used by some even medical practitioners, especially line holders. Sometimes they use these words to say rent, and that's why people comfortably use it. But I mean, for me, when it comes to the issue of resigning, I think it's unfortunate for the minister to say what benefit or how will his resignation benefit the Gambian people. It's about responsibility. I think we saw, I'm not sure whether this is recent or it was sometime, because sometimes some of these things come when they happen a long time ago, but they just come with recent. We've seen a minister in Portugal resign because of the death of an Indian woman in Lisbon, in a hospital. And we do see this because
in Senegal, there was a fire and 12 people died. The minister was removed. Yeah.
And then if you look at those cases as well, those ministers can also say, well, this is not directly my fault, but it's about responsibility. It's about when your position is no more tenable. You have to honorably resign to save yourself. We have seen it happen even in the Gambia, Fatou. Not even need to go to Senegal. IGP Kinte had to resign after the Faraba incident when some people were shot there. I think 3 people also were killed. IGP Kinte, because of the pressure and all that, had to leave his job. At least to console the people, the victims and families of the victims. But when it comes to this case, so the minister saying that his resignation will not be of any benefit, I think that is unfortunate, to have come from him. His resignation, of course, is also about accountability. That when people are given responsibility, whether you've put in place other people, to discharge that responsibility or not, at the end of the day, you shoulder that responsibility when there is failure. But for me, I've said it's not only about people calling for the minister's resignation, but how about the president as well? I know some will consider this as something crazy and mad. What is wrong with him? Why you say the president should resign? I mean,
aren't you asking for too much?
No, I'm not asking. I'm not asking for too much. I'm not asking for too much. You see, Fatou, the root cause of this, the problem is, 21st century, we don't even have labs to test drugs and food that come inside this country. That is not only the fault of the minister, but it's also the fault of the government. Of course, the president is the head of that government. We cannot be in the 21st century. You're talking about Bob Keita's case. We have to take this, the DNA all the way to Ghana to go and test. Yeah. When this what is the sniper issue came out here on smoke fish, we had to go all the way to Senegal or somewhere out to test. Yeah. Then we're talking about syrup, paracetamol syrup and cough syrup in the country. We had to take the samples outside again to go and test this. So it shows that no one is safe in this country when it comes to the food and the drug that you consume. No one is safe because these things are coming without them being tested. Whose fault is that? When we know that corruption has not only been normalized in this country, but is also rampant and is being decentralized in this country. Every now and then we hear scandals. The Minister of Health himself stood before the floor of Parliament to say that there is corruption in my ministry. National Assembly, the public, civil society, opposition parties, what did we do? Did we raise questions? Nobody cared. We know how COVID funds have been mismanaged in this country. We've seen National Audit Report came out and exposed the rampant corruption and mismanagement of public funds, and no one seems to care. And that is why this is one of the consequences of corruption. Those who will sit and say, well, it's not my business, you don't care, but here is it. Okay, maybe your own nephew or your own relative, a child, an innocent child died from this. When we are saying the money that's been wasted, okay, by public officials, not only through corruption, but also the endless travels that they do, sharing paradigms, the president traveling with more than 40 people to the United Nations to attend the UNGA. I mean, all these things happening when we don't even have machines. And somebody somewhere will tell us that, well, we don't have resources. I mean, to hell with that excuse. We can't be in the 21st century when we spend millions, when we have rampant corruption in this country, people stealing everywhere, left, right, and center, and no one seems to care. Then we don't have even labs to test drugs that are coming into this country, food that are coming into this country. And that's why everybody's sick in this country. So the failure of that is not only the responsibility of the minister, but also the president. And that is why I will differ with the rest of mankind who will only call for the resignation of the minister, but I will extend this. I will stretch this to say people should equally call for the resignation of the president. Why will you only blame the minister saying that he's responsible? But the minister also has a bigger boss. He has a bigger boss, and that's the president. What is wrong with people equally calling for the president's resignation? Not only for failure to provide basic, because they have to understand that health is a right as well. Yeah. Okay? And these are so basic. We are not asking for too much. We are asking for just mere labs where at least drugs and food can be tested to confirm or ascertain they are fit for human consumption, but these things are not being done. And then people take it to be normal just to say, oh, the minister should resign, forgetting about the president himself. I think we're very unfair to him as well. It's not only him that should go. In another country, 69 children died. 69. We're not talking about 9, but 69. And everybody goes to sleep in peace. The president will go. People just stand and say the minister should resign. Why? What is the president waiting for if the minister should go? So I think at some point we're unfair to him. But I think also,
I understand that. I mean, people. The reason why we are not taking seriously Sadio is because it's a whole lot of people. Why do we have civil society in the country? Why do we have the Bar Association, human rights, the human rights group? We're very good at issuing statements. We issue statements when things happen. That's where it stops. If this was in other countries, lawyers would have taken cases of these victims. By now, we would have seen cases going, people going, suing the government and all that stuff, all the way to the ECOWAS court, because somebody somewhere neglected and 69 people died, and we are still counting. But when these things happen, we cry foul on social media, other people make noise on Twitter, and we issue all these statements, we report these statements, we put it out there, and that's where it stops. No one goes further to talk about it. When this was happening, the National Assembly was on. Kerr Fatou we were live streaming it. Up to now, I haven't had these. I mean, if this, yes, it's not part of the agenda, but if something like this happened, this is a tragedy. I would expect the National Assembly will take 10 minutes break of their session and talk about this. But no, it didn't. Now, do you think as a society, this is not just, yes, government failed in providing the basic rights, providing good medications, that's why people died. But us as a citizen who also should hold these people accountable, are we doing what we're supposed to do? There are so many scandals that happen here. You mentioned all of these things, the COVID funds, the audit reports, and other issues, but nobody takes up these cases. We just bring it, like I tell Mustafa, oh, you investigate all these cases.
Yeah, before 2 days. Yeah, before Sadio comes in, just
go ahead.
Yeah, before Sadio comes in, just to add on to that, like I said, this is one consequence of corruption. Wow. That when corruption happens, people tend to die. I've always given this example on the media platforms or media engagements. I said, there's one Kenyan professor who said that, corrupt public officials are murderers, in the sense that the money that should go into the health sector to buy drugs, to buy equipment. This is what we are saying. And if you look at it, that analysis fits into this. The money that should go into the healthcare sector to buy drugs and buy equipment so that people can get proper medical attention, will be diverted by few individuals, scrupulous individuals, corrupt public officials, and then people die in hospitals. So those who died for him, they are murdered by nobody but those corrupt public officials. Everybody said that, the money that should go into building good roads for us is been diverted by few corrupt public officials. At the end of the day, the road accidents that happen and people who die there are killed by no other person but those corrupt public officials. But it seems nobody should care. And one thing that angered a lot of people during that press conference, I think the minister could have managed that press conference. Your concern was to come and address the media, talk to the media about what was going on. People, at some point, you also have to understand the level of emotions of the people. But what we saw was the minister came at some point starting to say, okay, we want to thank the president for delivering. Why are you thanking the president? People are saying that out of negligence, out of irresponsibility on the part of the government.
Remember, the president also thanked health officials.
You should.
The president thanked the health officials. He said they did so well in containing this under the circumstances.
I mean, even if you say health officials, I can understand that because they were able to detect it.
Yeah.
But what are you thanking the president for, just for coming and reading a statement that he had no idea that was just written for him to come and read for us? Why do we still live in this, I don't want to say, but jammy era of thanking the president, thanking each other? The president came and thanked the ministry, for doing a good job. But the minister of health also came and thanked the president. Mayor reading a statement. You just have to understand the emotions of the people at that moment. People are saying, okay, it's out of negligence that this thing happened. Obviously, you will know that people are just angry with the president, with the government, including the president. You cannot just also come there and just play with people's emotions by thanking the president for merely reading a statement. Just go straight to the point, address the issue. Journalists have questions. When they raise that, you address it. But if you come and thank the president for just delivering a statement, it is his responsibility. I always say this, why do we thank public officials who's supposed to be, in my Madi Jabate's voice, Mbindan? These are Mbindans for us, and the president is our chief Mbindan. Why do we have to thank public officials for doing their job? When something happens in the country that is abnormal, it is the responsibility of the president to come and talk to the people. Then why do you have to thank the president for that? So if people are angry, I think they have all rights to be angry, that the minister will just have to confess before saying anything to thank the president for delivering a statement and then get into the issue. So for me, it's out of negligence that we have this. And like I said, we have no excuse. We're in the 21st century, for God and heaven's sake, 21st century. When public officials will travel, or political surrogates will travel to New York and tell us that, you see how New York Americans build their capital. You see, when they know what is happening in those countries. And then we have this country in the 21st century. 21st century, for God and heaven's sake, it's not 19th century, it's not 20th century, 21st century. Labs, machines just to test drugs and food that are coming into this country. And I am saying from that day, I declared that yes, Gambia, everybody is at risk here. Well, those of you who are outside the country, if you can stay there, well, it's better, because as long as you are in this country, you are not safe. The food that you are consuming, you are not safe. The drug that you are even taking, you're not also safe. So everybody is at risk. There is an emergency in this country. Everybody is at risk when it comes to the drugs and the food that we consume.
Sergio, I come back to what I said. Do you think, as a citizen, we also have a role to play in this? We don't hold our government officials. Not a lot of people like Esa, Madi Jobate, and the Young Jai speak up. Apart from that, when people put out press releases, that's all. Nobody follows up as to what happens and all this stuff. Do you think that also has a role to play? Somebody told me, somebody in the government one time said, hey, if they are at least on social media long I bang, because that's what we do, and that's how we do it.
Unfortunately, yes. Is it a factor? True, but you have to put everything in context, understanding our history. most Gambian, including myself, people exercise self-restraint on speech during dictatorship out of fear. And then it kind of continue, it would take a cycle for us to break out of it. And then you mentioned that when 69 people, died, you at the assembly, and assembly didn't mention it. They should take 10 minutes to talk about it. I mean, they set their own agenda. Why take 10 minutes? Even if the assembly was, suspended at the time, they could call an extraordinary session just to discuss this thing, because it's very important. And then, in my opinion, just gauging from the 5th and then the 6th legislature, although there is some strife, but I keep asking myself, what's the difference between them and then the 1st, 2nd, 3rd legislative assembly? Other than we have more oppositions, and then now people use it as a forum to actually bash the government, but they are not doing anything, And then for this specific case, prior to that, you have, I think Shakespeare was right. I think ultimately Gambia, I always have the firm belief, the legal profession, they're like first line defenders. And then what I have, I'm yet to see in the Gambia is any attorney general who comes into that office and then set up their agenda to the citizen and say, as I swore in as your new AG, my focus would be on to fight public corruption, or I'm going after, white collar criminal, which involve people who are importing this kind of drug, rather than, petty theft offenses. This is what my focus would be. Or my focus would be to fight, consumer protections that deals with these banks giving, unfair lending practices and then usuries. That's what I would go in. That's what I see here. We don't have that kind of agenda. You have a minister, a government minister, come into our National Assembly, indicate that there is a lot of corruption in his department. And then the first thing to do, if you don't know what to do with it, and then the most humble thing to do would be to resign. While you make that speak, resign and later. But I expect the National Assembly to follow up on that. Call the Ministry of Justice and ask them, what are you doing? Please tell us you are investigating this matter and bringing, charges. We have laws in the books that could do that, but none of those things happen. And then my difference is this whole issue. I don't even know, like the president and then the minister are congratulating each other, but you have to divorce those two parts. What I understand, there was a speech about comparing the death of 69 people to last year's statistic, indicating that there is not
a lot of variance.
The variation is minimal at best.
Minimal,
If, as the president, I would expect you to thank our local nurses and doctors that are working under unimaginable conditions to save life. There is a part of everything. We have to divorce this whole thing together. In terms of the response to, let's say, if there are 100 of other children that were brought into RVH or other government department, and then the doctors and then the everyday nurse Gambians work under these unimaginable conditions to save a lot of life, in as much as even one life that is lost is a tragic, but let's say the count is 69. To that extent, I expect the president, in fact, the ministry, to thank those healthcare workers, the first line defenders, for doing an incredible job under unimaginable circumstances. Then you can pivot to say, in as much as I'm thanking these officials for what could have been catastrophic, it could have been 100, 200, knowing this drug is out there. Now I'm coming after you, individuals, leaders who are responsible for, controlling this area. That's how the tone should have been set. If the speechwriter, you could show that and then thank those people to boost their morale. Let them know, I understand what you have to work with and then what you did here. And then go after those responsible. That's how I would look at it. But I don't. If the thank is going to those nurses, I don't, read the speeches now because I don't focus on all these press releases. I think that's appropriate. For the minister's sake, you are the minister of this department. If this thing happened, yes, if people ask you to resign, it is, it comes with humility. You can resign. It doesn't mean you might be personally responsible, but it's a sign of taking leadership and then showing that, hey, this is what I'm doing. For the president, every day president would resign. What is happening? What I expect of the president, if you fail to act after something came through your line ministries, I expect ministers to resign. The president, what we expect of you, your response should be to assure citizens, and this is not going to happen, and then hold them accountable. If you fail in that part, that's where you could ask of a president to resign. But you don't ask the president to resign because 69 people died. How he responded to that, that's what would my yardstick to gauge. But in my own opinion, I don't think this is not even just negligence. And then there's criminal negligence, but this is just intentional. You have a whole medicine agency through an act of parliament that created an agency responsible for vetting drugs, just like FDA here for all the drugs coming into the country. That's your job. And then if what I understand from Isha or some of the comments coming on, like their response is, we don't have the equipment to test this drug.
Yes, I interviewed the executive secretary of the MCA. She said they don't have the capacity to check in every drug that comes into the country. They don't have the capacity. Some come through the border, some come through, and they don't even have the capacity to test all of these drugs. That's what she said.
When they say capacity, what I want to know, do you have the equipment to test?
If they don't have the equipment for all of it, no.
So if you don't have the equipment, you should be in jail, because this is an agency created by National Assembly, meaning there's a budget line for that industry. And then in order to do your job, by statute, your job is define your responsibilities. The first thing you should do as a head of that institution to see, I need A, B, and C to do my job effectively. Those are indispensable. I cannot work without those things. And then if they are not there, I expect you to make a report about that and then submit it as part of the budget. If they did not give it to you, you could resign or raise it out or make a public statement and then inform the public, I need this, I could not get this, and then we are not vetting this drug. That information should be out there. But if you are just keeping your salary and then your job requires something, that's malfeasance. Like they should come after you. What I should see, that should happen. But if the person did their job and assembly is not supporting it, we go after our National Assembly members. Instead of blaming the president, maybe they are the fault for not creating that budget. What they should have done, slash the budget from State House. Why are we paying the highly paid civil servant in the country? We are paying for your food when you're not paying for taxes. That should not happen in that country. Those things should be there. And then the other thing, what I expect from National Assembly, they have to take responsibilities too. They are not doing a lot. The Attorney General, in fact, in this case, lawsuits change, make public policy. The Bar Association should come, because if you sue the government, that money is coming out of taxpayers' money. Once they start paying millions and punitive damages out of taxpayers, and then they could not fund other government project, it forces the government to do the right thing, because otherwise citizens would be enraged and not vote for you. That's how you address that part. But what happens in this case, we have an agency that is responsible for vetting drugs. They never did. Not only that, they collude with people they're supposed to regulate. Whether you call it in partnership, renting license, there are serious ethical concerns in those areas. And then that happen, your response is, oh, gee, we don't have the machine to test, these drugs. Or we don't have the human resources, the capacity. Did you report that you don't have the capacity? Because custom is at the border. There's a lot to go out. Are you stating for a fact National Assembly should bring them? Well, Medical Council, are you saying you have the equipment to test, but your contention is most of these drugs are not coming through airport where your agents are, or you have asked to be stationed at the border post where drugs are coming legally, but custom is not allowing you? We need to know where it goes wrong. And then those responsible are criminally held responsible. And then if they are not going after that, similar things happen here in the US. A lot of states went after these, when the opioid crisis came here, they went after them, sued them, paid a lot of millions, put them in accounts to pay for the victims. The companies were closed and bankrupt. That's what I expect from the Ministry of Justice. But the other lawyers should also pick up and then start filing class action against government, because what happened is unacceptable. And then how the government respond to that and the National Assembly would change the conversation. If they don't have the budget, put it there where we need it rather than spending money in other places. And then the most radical thing, I always ask myself, if I were a National Assembly members, why not institute a policy? Any appointed executive member, from the president to the ministers, except for the civil service, which we call competitive service, if you get ill, you must be treated in our local hospital, or you resign if you have the funds to sponsor your own trip outside. We put a complete moratorium on that. Once they start going to the same hospital, everyone is going, believe me, changes would happen. If National Assembly passed that law, you cannot compel them to be treated in the Gambia. But if you're a public appointed minister or the president, you get ill or sick, must be treated in our local public hospitals. If you don't want that, you resign and then pay for your own trip somewhere. Let National Assembly come with that legislation, because we are paying for their medical insurance, and we are asking with that medical insurance, we are only going to give co-pay to public hospitals. Once we start instituting that, they would fix those places, because if you think that it's a death trap, you would not allow yourself to go there. Sometimes you have to be drastic in order to change a lot in the country, but that's not happening. There's a lot of blame to go here, from the MOJ to the Ministry of Health, and then eventually how the buck stopped at the president, how he responded to that. That's how I see it. But most importantly, civil society could not only be singing it. I expect, lawyers to come. I think the one fiction that has been sold to a lot of young lawyers in Gambia is this whole idea. Everything is a human right issue. Like the training we have with those, we try to make everything everything is human right, of course, but that's not how you approach everything. Go to court. This is just a simple personal injury issue or a product liability issue. Go to court and help those proper defendants that are responsible and sue them, let them pay the citizens money, and then put punitive damages. That's how we control these things, rather than, every day doing our peacock dance on our press releases or saying, these are some of the things we need. That's the National Human Rights Commission that we set up to look into this matter and then make those press releases. We should move away from that and then now start active litigation. I think that could, help us in the long run.
Talking about press,
I mean, just to add one thing here. You see, for me, the reason why
are we not seeing you, Esa? Charles,
again,
why are we not seeing Esa and myself? Charles, are you there?
I mean, so for me, if you look at this whole situation, the reason why I differ with a lot of people, and I want to believe that, the call for resignation should start from the president, is this. One, we know this is negligence, okay? That when you are the president, it is your responsibility. Like you've appointed people in positions. It is equally your responsibility to make sure that there is proper and effective monitoring, that things are working. Baba came to power since 2017. You can't be there for 6 years or almost 7 years. Is it that he doesn't even know that we don't have labs in this country that test drugs and and food? Is that what he wants to tell us? If he is telling us that he's not aware, then he shows no care. If he is aware, then it's deliberate on his part. Okay, that the Gambia under his leadership for almost 7 years doesn't even have labs to test these things. And like Sandra is saying, we call for the president's resignation if he fails to act, accordingly, or how people expect. And that's what happened exactly. I mean, like you said, government officials, including the president, is aware that Gambia has become a country of scandals, and people talk for just 2-3 days, and that's it. Even this AKI issue, believe me, I think yesterday or so, they were supposed to hold a press conference, okay? But they did not go ahead with that press conference, and everybody seemed to be quiet about this case now. It seems like
because they were invited for questioning. Actually, they're going to hold a press conference tomorrow, but they were invited for questioning.
But that's what I'm saying.
Because they wanted to hold a press conference.
Exactly. What I'm saying is that it's like everybody is forgetting about this issue, and believe me, by tomorrow, Saturday, a lot of people would have forgotten about this. And the uncountable, the children that have died that are probably not been recorded by the Ministry of Health. I mean, no one shows concern about it. So when this thing happened, and in fact, the government did not come out early to talk about this. I mean, they said the WHO has violated protocols or whatever by announcing the results before the government of the Gambia did it. I mean, we saw that happen, right? It took like, a week or more, or even three weeks that, Gambia started showing concern that indeed 66 children died in the Gambia as a result of the cough syrup or paracetamol syrup from India. So, I mean, the president after that just coming to make a statement, all that you could say, okay, compare the figures, but also, try to thank the ministry. Yes, not bad to thank those, people that have been there in the front line to make sure that, okay, they detected this earlier, this could have caused more damage and all that. But you did not, the only thing that you said is, the Ministry of Health, the only thing tangible there was for the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Justice to work together to update our Medicine Regulations Act and all that more. That was all that the president said. But in ensuring, like Sajo said, that people that were responsible for this negligence, I mean, pay the price for this. The president did not at any point address that. And that was why the whole nation was eager, waiting to hear what the president will say. And for me, at some point, well, I did not expect anything different. But at some point, I was wondering, I was saying, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe this time around, the president will really, I mean, be tough and hold those people responsible to make sure that they pay the price for this, to make sure that, you know, somebody somewhere, you know, pay the price for the negligence that led to the loss of 66 children. But that did not happen. And then after that, on Saturday, what we saw was the minister also coming, trying to sing praise of the president. Well, I thank him for delivering the statement and telling us that what benefit will my resignation bring? I mean, so it shows that the president did not act the way he's supposed to act. So why should he be saved? For me, it's both the minister and the president. They're both culpable of this. They're both responsible. At the end of the day, the president is the head of government. He is the head of executive. He's the one who appointed the minister. He should be able to tell us, he should be able to know whether the Gambia has testing machines or not. Like I said at the beginning, if the president is telling us that he does not know, which I want to believe, probably he will, if anybody asks him this, he will tell you that I don't know that we don't have testing machines. Then that shows that we have a president who doesn't care. But if he is telling us that he knows that we don't have machines, but you know, we have limited resources, I'm saying that is unacceptable. We have resources that can really get us this. And I always say this, we have a government that is reactionary and not proactive. We only wait for damages to be done and then we want to repair them. We know what happened with the Banjul project. Okay, the signs where the flooding happens. Every year flooding will happen in this country and the president will come and tell us that, well, it's not something new. You know, it's normal, it happens in other countries as well. Let's come together and work, and that's it. Okay, this, I mean, we could have prevented this. We could have prevented this if we had got machines, but we did not get that, and that happens now. And the president will come and tell us that, oh, A, B, C, and that's it. And so we don't have a government that is proactive, that will, you know, be proactive on issues. Rather, they only wait for the damage to be done. And now we are hearing words that they, in working with this WHO or World Bank, I think the World Bank, to try to get these machines. So they only have to wait for 69 children to die before they think of getting these machines. If 69 children had not died, I'm telling you, or maybe 10 children died, I'm telling you still they will not even have been serious about getting this machine. So it's because 69 children died. So it shows us that, Fatou, you look at Taule, they know what is happening. They know that really we can get this. It is not going to take us even months to get this machine now. For 7 years, we can't get this machine under the Barrow administration. It's deliberate. It's just outright negligence and deliberate.
Thank you.
This is what I struggle with. I never worked in Gambia, so sometimes, you know, I struggle with certain things. With what I see from Gambia, maybe you guys could, you know, help me out here. You could bring Obama as the president and then Lincoln as the vice president. From what I've seen, the same thing would continue. I don't think, you know, don't get me wrong. I believe we need competent leadership, you know, even with that.
Yes,
but even if any person who comes, let's say you become the president, I don't expect you to know every line ministry, what they actually do, because you're not an expert. You know, I'm thinking for myself, if I happen to be a president today, yes, I work in the area of law. And then I understand a lot about when it comes to law enforcement and then the judiciary. That would be my strongest suit. You know, in terms of policy, I can even proactively ask about things that I see that are not happening and then check with my minister. But now let's say from health, in as much other than knowing that we need competent health facilities and others, I wouldn't ask everybody should. I expect my line minister to come to me and tell me, these are our difficulties. This we cannot do without. This is what we need. Bring that budget. And then as a team, you know, executive. But what I have been seeing in Gambia, you know, yes, granted, let's say a disaster like this thing happen. That's when, as a president, I expect you go back on your briefing from the time this person was the minister and then see whether they have addressed these issues or whether your advisors have. If none of those things were there, I know you are not doing your job. You are going that day. Before, you know,
Sajo, isn't that why not? Is that not why the reason why the president has liberty of hiring and firing all these ministers and also employing competent and right people for the right ministries and jobs, because we don't expect the president to know all of these things. We don't expect the president to know all of these different departments. But what we do know, the law has made provisions for him to hire hundreds of people, competent people. Now, the law has made also provisions for the president to create the environment. Now, you came into this system, the civil service needs reforms. We all agreed when we change government, the civil service needs reforms. The security sector needs reforms. Now, what has the government done to change that? Unless and until we change the civil service, we change the people in the system who are used to normalizing issues, the system will not change, even if you bring Obama, because the system is managed by people. But then you have to put in policies and regulations and direct cut, like it has to start with the leadership. That's why we say the buck stops with the president. The president can hire and fire a minister today. He has liberty to have 10 or 20 advisors apart from the ministers. Their role is to furnish with him with information and make sure he's doing the right things for the job. Now, if he's not able to do that, then there is a problem. That means he's not able to attract the right people to himself. That's where the problem is.
I think you see there's a big problem in this country. Like I think Sadio hinted onto that at some point, saying that we cannot be even taking care of the health insurance of these, public officials from our taxpayers' money. I think what we do in this country, we claim to be poor, but I think let me say this in Mandinka, I don't want to say but then we give them too much privilege.
Yeah.
Okay, and enjoyment compared to you. Both of you are in the US. I mean, especially Sergio, that there are certain things that the president or the first family in the White House will have to take care of for themselves. Yeah. Okay, but here literally everything is being paid by the taxpayers. The president doesn't know how much a kilo of meat costs in the market. Fish. He doesn't know oil, rice, sugar. He doesn't even care because everything is being put by the taxpayers. We are paying for everything, literally. His travels within the country and outside, everything is being taken care of by the taxpayers. Where are you putting your money? The $350,000 that we are paying the president, where is that going to? So all these enjoyments, are out there. And there's one thing that I've always said this repeatedly on media engagements. You see, we have to stop taking excuse for Barrow, like experts. He's always said, my technicians. For God and heaven's sake, if you are a leader in the 21st century, a president, and you entirely will be relying on experts on certain things, then you are not fit for the job. This is the hard fact. Let's be blunt here. We don't have to be taking excuse for this man. He relies on experts. He does it. Nobody is saying that he has to know everything that is happening. But there are certain things that are so basic. There are leaders who are proactive, transformative. What they do is when they wake up every morning, know that 900,000 people voted. 53% of the voter population, okay, not 900,000 registered, but 53% of the voter population voted for you and trust you with the leadership, with the affairs of the country. You don't have, the job that you have in your hand is not a joke, okay? There are leaders who will wake up every morning. They get information. They are updated on everything that is happening in the country. What is wrong with the president when he came to power since 20? It's not for the minister to come and tell him that these are our problems, this is what we lack. No. What is wrong with the president even getting to the hospital? We've been talking about 5 years since he came to power. He never visited the hospital. No hospital in this country had the president visited, except when this Faraba incident happened, that Barrow went to RVTH. He never stepped his feet on any hospital in this country. How do you expect him to know the basic problems that are there? That people should come and tell him that these are things that we are facing, we have this challenge and all that? What is wrong with the president getting to the hospital? What is wrong with the president calling the minister and those responsible? Labs, machines as basic as they are, just to test drugs and food coming inside the country. What is wrong with the president asking the minister to tell him that, look, what is happening in your ministry? What challenge do you face, especially when it comes to equipment? We know that when there is a lot of people in this country now, the only problem in this country, healthcare problem in this country that a lot of people face now, the illness that almost everybody is going through, whether you know it or not, maybe if you go for tests, you will know about it, is kidney failure, kidney problem in this country. Even dialysis is a problem in our hospitals, that when people need kidney transfer, they have to go all the way to India. Now, those are maybe sophisticated and all that, but as basic as lab machines to come and test these things for us. What is wrong with the president going to these people, calling the minister or those responsible, telling them that what are the challenges when it comes to equipment in our hospitals? I believe if the minister did not go to the president to tell him, then the minister will tell him if the president asks. We want to know, because health is so basic, it's fundamental. That is responsible for the survival of any country, the development of any country. No country can develop in the absence of healthy people. Now, you know these basic things. You should be able to tell us. For 5, 6, 7 years, you are in power. You want to tell us that, oh, if the minister doesn't, you have to be transformative. You have to be proactive as a leader. You are there on behalf of 2.5 million people, shouldering the responsibility of that country. We cannot be taking excuse for Barrow that every day we say he's not the expert, he relies on technicians. Everything that you say, this man will tell you that I rely on my technicians. Then you are not fit for the job, you have to resign. You have to be proactive and transformative. Get there. We know that Jammeh with all his, just like Badinkas will say, at some point he will go and get these things for himself. Try to say what is happening here, what is happening here. Try to know exactly the problem. But Barrow cannot be sitting there, even statements, speeches. Everything has to be written for this man, and he will just come and deliver. He will not even go outside the text. The SONA address. This man went there, read verbatim what is on paper, not even to go off script and talk about the security challenge in the country. Pay condolence to the victims of murder in the country in those days. He came with the speech of 6 minutes, when this AKI incident happened, just reading the text verbatim, not even to go off the script, to tell us that I feel your pain. I understand your, and everything, all that we do in this country is to say, like, he's not the expert, he's not the this, technicians are supposed to be there to guide him. We cannot be living in that we have to tell this man the truth. Look, you are leading a country of 2.5 million. You have a responsibility. 53% of the voter population came out and said, President Barrow, we trust you over all the others. Yeah. That we are giving you the mantle of leadership of this country. Lead us to the promised land. That you have to do the job or you leave. But he cannot be taking excuse all the time. I'm not the expert. Let him go down there, leave his comfort zone in State House. Okay, the time that he used for even the holidays in Mankamankunda or so, he could use that to tour the hospitals, to tour the very important, places in this country. To know basically what is going on. But the president is not doing that. Every time he comes, we give him ready-made speech. He comes and read, and then thank you very much, and then he goes. And everybody is like, no, let's not blame him.
Esa is always on the president.
No, I think Esa is using Barrow as the yardstick, just like I don't use Jump. I don't think, for me, the way you surround yourself with expert, I'm not going to look kind of on you. But what I have seen, in all honesty, what I have seen from Gambia, I think the people that surround the leaders, are not also doing their job. And then I'm not saying, I'm not even talking about Barrow. To me,
I agree with you partly. I agree with you partly.
But this is what I want. Even with speeches, like what you are saying, those are the reason, majority of Gambians pointed out that Barrow is not fit for presidency because he's lacking in capacity. For instance, I don't know of a president who would go off this script, even Obama. The difference is, if you read his book, and then I read his book, he is very much involved in his own speech writing than the writers. He would write his draft, and then he has paid speech writers. They would come in, he would, no, I don't want this language. It's insensitive. This is how I want it. It's very much
exactly.
That's what I expect.
Exactly.
But he want to make sort of project what is happening to address the his people, and then I expect that from any president. And Barrow, I expect him to be involved in his speech writing. Okay, how do you mean, this language, this sentence? How does that, does that feel comfortable? At the end of the day, it's his decision to say this should not be there. But I expect him to stay within the confine, because professionals are helping you to make sure you do not offend a particular set of the community.
Segment,
and then he has to rely on that.
He has to rely on them. Yes.
And then regarding health, I expect him to visit all the hospitals. You understand? Barrow could visit the Justice Ministry and come out and then would not know if a crime has been committed or not. There are some things, those are open secret in Gambia when it comes to healthcare, because we have endured that lack of medication and all those things. At least he's aware of that since he was in the opposition. When he comes there, I expect him to bring those conversations. But here is where Gambians are missing. To me, Barrow is the president. National Assembly we have there, they have their problem. Why can't they? Because Barrow we don't have a dictatorship. It's not a king. He doesn't decide how much you get paid. National Assembly approved that. No, allow me. No, from a legal standpoint.
Go ahead.
I mean, he's dictator in his way, but I mean, in terms of from a constitutional democracy. Barrow doesn't say I'm going to be paid $10 today and then he paid himself. No. We have National Assembly that control it. There's a check and balance system. They approve his salary. Why can't they look at the budget and say, no, Mr. President, we are not doing it. Let people keep their National Assembly members accountable first, and then it will trickle down. We are not going to pay you this amount. Mr. Barrow, we are not going to pay for your food unless it's a state function. You would go to the market and then buy your own groceries out of your salary. We are paying you, you're not paying taxes. Why are we paying teachers $2,000 and then we are paying you almost $5,000, but we still give you food and everything? That's why they put all those chicken wings over there, because it's free. Let him start paying for it. We bill it. White House, every president get a bill. That's how you get for your food. We can provide cooks for you because he's the most important man in the state. We cannot allow you to get your food from anywhere, but government could contract those buying from anywhere. What we will do, we'll put a chef there. But anytime they send you chicken wings, we deduct it from your salary. That's how it works. That's what I expected. We can start from there. And then from the ministry, what I would know, National Assembly, what is preventing them from passing a legislation that requires, just as is here, every ministry, once you send a proposal for your estimated budget for the government to see, I'm not talking about the final budget that goes to National Assembly, for the citizens to know each ministry, how much are you asking for? That way we can take the minister to tax. If the minister is not saying that these are my problem, and then the citizen doesn't know, it doesn't exist, what we expect, what we presume, or in fact, what we are just speculating is during those briefings in the morning, we are thinking the ministers are telling the president what is necessary, and then the president is not acting. We don't know, because National Assembly is such changing us. They are not telling us. But if the Justice Ministry submit their budget and then require proposal and say, this is the money we need, and then this is the personnel we need, and then this is our handicap, and then the final budget that is coming out of the state reflected something different, the citizens know where the problem is. But that's why I said, us the educated, the ones with the system, are the one who do not love the country, and then we are creating this problem. And then we can remove Barrow. You could put Husseini Dawo there. It might even be worse. I can promise you that. Not that because it's the people. That's what I have concluded. Leadership is there. Leadership makes a big difference, because if you have a competent leader that see that, okay, maybe you fooled me once. I don't know there was a problem with health ministry on this specific problem. Like Dr. Samate's case. Samate came out specifically stating that, help me, National Assembly, there is endemic corruption in my ministry. You are the president, you hear that. You come to me, you tell me that I appoint you to run this place. And then you are telling me that you are helpless. Come 4 p.m. that day, you got your pink slip. I'm like, thank you, and I appreciate your honesty. You are just telling me you cannot do anything about the job. And that's good. You could resign. I would give you the grace to resign, or I would give you a pink slip at 4 p.m. today, because you are telling me you cannot effectively do that job. And then I would bring someone to do that. But not most importantly, I would tell you that within 30 days, I want you to investigate and tell me where you are filing indictment. I don't have that in 30 days. I'm having another attorney general. That's the president's lack of leadership there. But these other people, why can the Ministry of Justice set up that's their job, literally. Why can't they summon an independent investigation to see, okay, this guy said that someone is stealing public money. If National Assembly is not doing it, I'm doing it. That's my job. I'm going after them. There were no press conferences from them. So government work is a symbiotic relationship. One part cannot go without the others doing their job. And then that's why I say, in as much as, the buck stop at the president, if you don't have people doing their job, what we can expect? A president after 2 years, citizens are still complaining something is not right. That's your fault. Because at least you should ask yourself, If people are complaining each and every day that the market prices are heavy, this is happening, either you are getting wrong advice from people surrounding you, or you don't give a damn. It's one of two things. So you have to at least ask them, people are complaining, so you should hear. But if you surround yourself with people who cannot, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if Isha is, let's say, a farmer, and then he's successful at it, and then I brought in Isha to advise me on tailoring, of course, how can he advise me on that?
No.
So it has to begin with you. We have to see that seriousness in you to know that, okay, if I'm bringing Isa, where is Isa has expertise, let him advise me on that. But if I'm bringing Isa to advise me on tailoring, and then I bring Fatou, instead of I want you to be my communication minister, I was like, hey, Fatou, you advise me on agriculture. That is my problem. That's me not showing seriousness, and then the citizens could judge me on that. But if I bring in competent people, then at least I think it ought to be time we at least also looked at those things.
And
the national
okay. At this point, I want to, this is going to be the final point because we have run out of time. At this point, the country seems to be grappling with so many issues at the same time. Yesterday, the oil marketing companies issued a press release. There have been a back and forth with the Minister of Finance and Petroleum about fuel prices and diesel prices, and there was some issues sometime. Yesterday, they issued a statement and threatened to cease operations on Monday if government doesn't meet their demands. Right now, as we were on the program, I just got a statement from the Ministry of Finance also firing back at the oil, the OMCs. Actually, before I came on the show, I spoke to a senior officer from the Ministry of Finance, and they said, "Oh, we are. I'm hopeful that we will resolve this because we are having a meeting right now with the OMCs. Hopefully, before Monday, this is resolved." But from the press statement that I just received, it seems like maybe that meeting didn't go well. Now, that is one issue. The other issue is we have seen the people that wanted to do a press conference on this AKI were called for questioning. Now, this was not a demonstration. This was just people wanting to go held a press conference. And then we saw Mohammed, a comedian, who also made some remarks on social media, being arrested. I mean, personally, I think Mohammed, in our context, I believe he went a little overboard. I say this to my people, Bora, Mohammed, I say this to them. Sometimes we have to look at where we live in. Yes, freedom of speech, as long as you do not insult, you make mockery of people, that is accepted in some societies. But in our context, there are certain things when you say it, it looks like in the role again. And I think in that context, I feel like Mohammed went over the board. But did it warrant for him to be arrested and detained? That's the question. Are we worried about all of these events that are happening in a very short oil, people threatening not to sell fuel? This control a chunk of our economy. There was a time, few days, they did not sell. The impact that had on our economy, so restricting people from going to have press conferences, and also arresting some other people. Like, the impact of all of this, why do you think week in, week out in Gambia, we have to deal with all of these things? Sadio, this is going to be our final before we
I mean, I don't know whether it only indicate that our house is not in order. Overall, that's just the bottom line. Our house is not in order. And then I wish the government take that as a sign and then start acting appropriately. That's just the bottom line, meaning nothing is working. Either the policies they have out there are not working effectively, or the government have to rethink, or it reflect on the government performance. Basically, government, you are incompetent. Here, when our prices were up, a lot were happening. The buck stopped at the president, and then they went after him. He did a lot to make so, increasing interest rate to make so at least end the recession, and then control certain measures. So Gambia, we are not seeing that. If they are doing that, I expect them to do that. But citizens could at least, at the end of the day, what can citizens say? well, the presidency doesn't know what they're doing, and then the house is not in order. You failed. We need to change you come next election. That's how I looked at it. Now coming to Bora's, I mean, like the arrest by IGP in terms of Mohammed, I think they have better things to do, better crimes to do than going after comedian. Yes, you know, you have to look at everything in terms of context. I think the last report I saw, you know, the news, if that statement is true, that he was charged with inciting violence, right?
Yeah.
You have to look at it in a context. If I walk into a crowded theater and then I scream, fire, 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 and then people start running, people get injured, I have the freedom of speech to say that. And then that is not unprotected speech. But in that instant, in that context, is inciting violence, because the context, people would scream, they would think there is fire, and then I could be held liable. If Bora, on the Gambia, our culture, we know, I keep saying Bora, forgive me, because Mohammed, and then if he's outside, let's say Serakunda Market or in a crowded area, and then make the statement that it was like that, because I haven't watched the video, I don't know exactly what he said, but let's say, you know, he made statement that in our culture we consider them offensive, even though they are not expressive or you know, implicit offense, like actually calling someone and then insulting them, but the interpretation is generally accepted in our community because of our culture, religion, and tradition to consider that as an insult to elders. It can lead to a fight. The easiest way to provoke a society in Gambia: say something that they perceive as an insult to their parent or religion. That could lead to violence immediately. It would be imminent. And then regardless of his constitutional right to say that, the context he said it and in the police would be justified in charging him. But let's say, you know, like we are here, you know, behind the camera on the TV, and then let's say that's how, you know, Mohammed does it. He said whatever he has to say. He's at the confine of his home. At that moment, in as much as you might think that the statement might incite violence, how eminent are they? You looked at it from a criminal standpoint. Well, Mohammed is at his home. He's not in a crowd. People might be angry, but what's the police, you know, justification? Attenuation that, oh, should Mohammed go out? If he were to walk in the market, someone might be angry about what he said. Yes, it's a lot of if. You know, speculation. So that, I think, is just a waste of time, and then that's not what our democracy needs. What I would have expected is the Attorney General, because you could make legal opinion, pick up that phone and then call the IGP and then let him know that, look, what did this guy has been alleged to say? Under our books, I don't see there's any case there, and then you are not going to continue prosecution. Please release him effective immediately, and then do not arrest people with these kind of things. Now, as citizen, that's the legal part. That's what I expect. And then, you know, we can all agree with that. Like, look, what he said, in as much as the population might find it repugnant, but legally, we expect our ministries to do what is legally right. Now, citizens could sit and say, look, because of my religion, my culture, because that comes from first, what this guy said, I am not going to move an inch to advocate for him. That is okay. But what should not be acceptable to any Gambian is the police, knowing our culture and then our religion, knowing that most people may not agree with him or may not even go out to protest for his right, use that as a pretext and say, we can arrest him. He wouldn't have support because what he did, it violated our moral ground. That's where we should draw the distinction. A Gambian could say, well, I'm not going outside to advocate for Mohammed because what he did is just below the belt for me. That is okay. But the institution we are paying out of our tax money, they should protect his right. That's where we draw that distinction. And then that's where, you know, people have to understand free speech is not absolute, you know, and then you have protected speech and unprotected speech. So there's a split line. Where do you draw it? But you looked at it in the context. But sitting behind, unless he's telling people, get out and then kill somebody or do those things, but making a comedy that's went beyond in our culture, that could be fine as an insult or repugnant to the president. Unfortunately, we have no law against that. And then he did not say it in a place where it could be imminent danger to inciting violence. I don't know why waste time. That's why I think this whole business of 72 hours in our constitution must go. And then even at the draft constitution, I advocate that any Gambian that is arrested must be brought and then to see a judge within 24 hours, like it's here. Let the judges, if we have to appoint weekend judges, let us have them. That way, Police do not use these 72-hour pretext, take you all the way there, only to release you. We caution you when you. It's just abuse. We should remove it. That way they don't have that latitude. You arrest somebody within 24 hours, they see a judge, period. And then it stopped there. That way they don't have the luxury of keeping people for more than that.
For more than that. Thank you very much, Sajo. Do we have Esa here for his closing?
Yes.
Esa, what's your reaction to that? All of these things that are happening, the arrest. Yeah,
I mean, I think I watched Mohammed's video. Just like you said, he went beyond the belt, and that is, if you look at it, from a sociocultural context, just like in the West, okay, you can tell your dad that you're lying, but here, Nico Famako by Mantonya.
I say so many insult, crazy things about
so
Trump out here, but
our
I'm
context
cool
also
with that.
matters a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, I think, but like you said, despite that, one could say, okay, Mohammed insulted the president socioculturally, if you look at it. But if you go,
we have a breaking news here, Esa. The president appoints trade minister. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the, in accordance to Section 71(4) of the Constitution of the Gambia, has relieved Honorable Babukar Usmaila Juf of the portfolio of Minister responsible for public service reforms and public accommodation delivery. In the same vein, the President, in accordance, has appointed the same Honorable Babukar as Minister responsible for the portfolio of Trade Ministry and Employment with immediate effect from today, 13th October 2020, blah, blah, blah. So, in accordance with the same constitutional provision, President Barrow has today appointed Babukar Boy as Minister of Public Service Reforms Policy Coordination effective November 1st. So this is what just came in. It just came in on our media group that is not yet even out. It's just the media chief groups that they send. So, for the past couple of months, we didn't have a trade minister. So the president has, the Babukar Boy, who was the public service minister, who was appointed a few months ago, is now the trade minister. So another guy has been appointed.
No, not Babukar Boy. Babukar Boy is the one.
Babukar Juf.
Babukar Boy was one time, I think, permanent secretary and minister of basic and secondary.
Yes. Now he's going to be the minister for public service delivery. That is the new ministry that is created. So Babukar Babukar Juf is going to Ministry of Trade. That just came in now.
All right, cool.
Ajo, you're laughing.
I think I'm also laughing, but I wouldn't say why I'm laughing anyway.
I cannot phantom it. You already have a ministry that's been there since beginning. You put someone at the new one or later move them to the old one. Didn't you know they are more?
Yeah, that just came in.
Just to summarize, in 2 minutes I'll be done. I think Fatou, we have taken a lot of time today, right?
Today, yes.
And you forgot that I'm fasting, Fatou. I have to be.
I forget that you fast on Thursdays. I know. I don't know. Yes, I always ask that question. I'm not gonna say it on air, but yes.
Anyway. So, I mean, listening to Mohammed's comment, I think at some point I was like, okay, what happened at the time he was, saying this? He was very mad or angry at the time. But like Sajo said, in our law books, can you charge him? And that is what I'm concerned about here. What he said, because I listened to it, I think what the police must have been very furious about, or what the president, one can say, must have been very furious about, was the body shame that he did to the first lady, because he was body shaming the first lady. Itamakulu Nyadi Lembang. I don't want to say it before they come after me as well, that I'm also inciting violence. And then the other thing he said was also, President Barrow. I think that must have been the reason why he was arrested. Ninnal talata, dunyala bafala. You get my point. So at some point you're just wondering, what is Mohammed hiding behind? What exactly does he have? So, but I don't think. I mean, like I said, I think the state has a lot of serious issues to take care of than just going after somebody that you think, okay. At the end of the day, you arrest him. you have to let him go, because what are you even going to charge him for? So this has happened here. We saw at one point Dr. Ismail Assisa being arrested for his comments on the media. Also, Madi Jabate being arrested. So this is frequent now. People were arrested when actually the state wouldn't have anything serious to levy against. So at the end of the day, they lose those cases even if they prosecute you. But sometimes, in fact, they know that there is no ground in prosecuting you, so they just have to let you go. But I think it's important that we try to make the state understand that even though people, there is limitation to freedom of expression. Is where your right stops, where is where somebody else's right begin. But we shouldn't at any point, stop people from expressing their views, especially how the country is being run. I think that is a fundamental right and freedom of every Gambian, and the state has to be careful with some of these things, because at the end of the day, it brings that bad reputation. Those signs of us returning to dictatorship. Also, like these people wanted to organize a press conference, they called them for questioning about what exactly are you interested in. The frequent questioning is just becoming problematic, and I think the state really has to look into that. With regards to the oil issue, I don't know exactly where this is going to end, because I think this is also very frustrating, especially if you look at our transport system. It's really frustrating and disheartening. Any day you have to go to work, you have to struggle to get vehicle, even if fuel is available. Now that fuel wouldn't be available, I think a lot of people will have to struggle on Monday, and it's bringing a lot of discomfort to a lot of families, especially those people that will have to go out to get something and put it on the table, food. So it's really something that the government has to look into. But like Sergio said, I think something, it shows that our house is not in order, and we really have to look into that. The breaking news, the appointment of we have a new minister for trade. Well, I think at some point, still, like Sergio, like you said, when you get somebody, let's say a farmer, to be an advisor, on tailoring, then you're creating more problem. And we want to know, I don't want to comment on that early, but we want to know, this man, Usman Babu Karjuf, I think, what is his experience or his knowledge and expertise on that area. And I think people have to stop taking this excuse of saying, oh, the ministers are political appointees, it's a permanent secretaries. We have to move away from that in this 21st century. We need ministers with competence. If it is not about expertise in areas, why would he appoint Dr. Samate as minister? Since then, why would he also appoint Professor Gomez as Minister of Higher Education? Because he appointed these people based on their, expertise and competence, okay, and their profession. So why would you spare other areas? You appointed somebody, a nurse, appointed him as Minister of Agriculture. Some people that have no expertise or knowledge or competence in particular areas, but those are political compensations or patronage that we see being extended by the president, and it's rather unfortunate in this 21st century that we still have that. I think that is where I would stop.
I think I want to bring these 2 points before I go. Like, I don't know, you said they ask people to come for questioning. I think this is where the legal community can help Gambians. Yes, you cannot obstruct official investigation, but if the police call you for questioning and then you believe you haven't committed any crime, go there and then listen. You don't even have to give them say anything. If they call you like, yes, I'm here, what do you have to say? Go with them. But my preference would be like, as I have done here. You call me, I'm like, am I under arrest? What do you have to say? I am not coming. Arrest me. You don't have to. Why would you volunteer to go there? And then, if they call you, oh, we have some question for you. Are you arresting me? No, I'm not going with you to the police station. Arrest me to take me over there. Because they would have to find probable cause to arrest you. Why would you volunteer yourself to go there and talk to them? You might go for A and then open the door for B. This is the problem. And then what you said in Mandinka regarding Mohammed, even if people find it disgusting in that context over, a web video, no crime has been committed. And then this is where civil societies and then bar association could come in and then sue the government. Go to Supreme Court and then quiet this issue down. Let Supreme Court decide about this constitutionality of this kind of arrest. He could be a test case. Sue the government for false arrest. and then the civil society and the bar association could be behind him, go to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court made a final say on this thing, whether police approaches in terms of people speaking with these things that we may consider body shaming or cultural, offensive, are they a crime? And then we would have resolved that issue. So if anybody doesn't want it, don't go for public office, and then that's there. But at least I'm not saying, I would support that as a Gambian, the culture we come from. I may not endorse it. I won't even participate in it. But this is the democracy we choose. And then, that's what we have. So this is where, as here, lawyers would come in and then make a constitutional challenge to some of these things. That way it doesn't happen again. Because it happened to Mahdi, Sise, now we're saying Mohammed. Why do we have to wait? Don't we have lawyers? Let them go and then quiet this issue down. And then let these people start suing. Just because they let you go, fight back. Sue them. It might take 5-10 years. Yes, we know the judges may drag their feet. But at least if 5-10 other people are suing, and then can you imagine if election cycle is coming in and then opposition are talking about how many lawsuits against the government in terms of right violation, reminding people about that? It also has consequences. These are some of the approaches citizens could take on their own too.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been a long conversation. We needed to catch up because we haven't had a show for the past 2 weeks. Thank you so much, Saja. It's always refreshing to have you on the platform. Thank you very much for the insight. Thank you, Esa. And to the viewers, we have a new Minister of Trade. A lot of people have been complaining. It seems the government, the president has heard your complaints. Babukar Ismail Ajuf is now the Minister of Trade, and he was the minister responsible for public service reforms. Now we have a new minister, and that is Mr. Babukar Boy. He's the new guy. He's going to be effective November 1st. Thank you, Sajo. Thank you, Esa. Yeah. Good night to you all, and see you next week, inshallah, with another show. Until then, continue to follow Kerr Fatou, and don't forget to send us stars if you're watching the show. That way you're empowering the network, and that way you're also supporting the network. Thank you very much. And if you're watching me on TikTok, thank you for watching. Now I will be live on my TikTok whenever I'm doing a show. That way you can also enjoy. And if you're watching on TikTok as well, yes, you can send us stars on TikTok as well. Good night to you all. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Better and stronger as the sole ground operator at the Banjul International Airport. With an expansion in travel services, customers are assured of GIA's capacity to cater for all their travel needs, provided by professional, experienced, and ever-smiling staff. GIA's Hajj package and services, by far the best in the country, give the customers the opportunity for a memorable Hajj experience. For a more efficient cargo services, GIA means business as it launches its new multi-million-dollar ultra-modern cargo complex to revitalize and stimulate air transport. GIA, the pride of the Gambia.
Every day is a new opportunity to make sure our first impressions are always our best and to see possibilities on the horizon. To make our facilities and services more accessible and find freedom all around us. With a location proximity to active markets, with a liberal air transportation policy. That daily pursuit is how we turn everyday opportunities for you. For all destination marketing support, customized packages for new existing airlines and operators, and for a highly ranked tourist destination, the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority is here to serve. We regulate air transport, operate and manage BIA technical requirements, merged with commercial considerations. We have experienced and well-trained aviation professionals to cater for your needs. For investment opportunities in building airport hotels, shopping malls, playground for children, do contact us on 4472-831, 4472-893. Gambia Civil Aviation Authority. We go beyond daily.